All right, and we are at the beginning. So, what do you? So, what did you? We just finished watching uh, an edited version of uh, the net. That's what I almost forgot we were watching.
Yeah.
We're off to a rousing start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
It's okay.
So
My brain is numb too.
I just
I-
keep coming back to it being at the Sydney Opera House, and that place was packed.
yes, and the audience was laughing far more than they should have been. Like, I don't know what show they were watching that was actually funny, and I wish I could see the same thing that they were seeing. The show we watched was terrible.
I could almost think that they edited the laughter in.
Well, generally when they do a stand-up special, when they record one, they do multiple shows to edit it together.
Yes.
They do at least 2 shows, depending on what kind of budget they have for it. They may do more, but yeah, you've got to figure that maybe it was like the first 15 minutes where they just took the laughs from each individual show and just shoved it in there. Because there's no way.
Yeah.
Because the audience was pretty much laughing the whole way through, and they shouldn't have been at all.
It should have been like the end and just that long, awkward silence.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there was some parts I didn't laugh as hard, but there were some jokes I genuinely enjoyed. But I mean, there's got to be enough people who enjoy the same cup of tea that Hannah does that would actually absolutely stand up and give it an ovation.
Yeah. I mean, I think if everything surrounding it wasn't so bad, the few good moments would be funny. It's just that the whole thing puts you in such a this is terrible mindset that even when it's not terrible, it feels terrible just because everything else has set the tone so poorly.
Yeah, there were jokes that I heard her tell. I was like, that could actually be kind of funny if the delivery wasn't such shit.
Yeah.
I found her like explaining a lot of her jokes. If it was a long and drawn out one, revisiting the explanation once or maybe even twice, I could get. But like some jokes didn't even need an explanation, like the unicorn one. Like we get it.
Yeah, she
There's
explained
no
like 2
facts
of
on
them.
unicorns.
She explained 2 of them in like the first 15 minutes, and that's when I knew we were off to a great start.
And then the hammering of lesbian content.
Yeah. I mean, the joke about she didn't even straighten up. I mean, that is not a great joke, but it could be funny in a better context. But
it'd be funny if she had scoliosis or something.
Yeah, that would
she should have made a scoliosis joke.
That would have worked.
I mean, how sad is this that 4 people on YouTube have already come up with like 10 jokes better than she did in an hour and a half?
Well, I said that in the chat that you were funnier in 5 words than she was in the entire special.
And I wasn't even trying.
No, I mean it was just a standard joke that anyone would make in the context, and it was funnier than the entire special.
But yeah, like I the first time I watched the special, I just kept track of the laughter from the audience. And I was like, what the fuck are we watching here? And the second time, I went ahead and I subjected myself to it again earlier today, and I just started taking notes about like the joke she was making and like kind of the general timestamp area. And it's like the first 2 notes, or in the first 15 minutes, she explained her jokes, like why they were jokes.
Yes,
because we all know the first rule of comedy is it's
always
if you have to
explain
it. If you have to explain it, it's not funny. But and then she went on to like around the 16, 17 minute mark. She's like just showing how little she understands self-deprecating humor.
Yes.
It's not humility, it's humiliation. It's like, yeah, you're humiliating yourself to make people laugh.
That's the point,
your
yeah.
job.
Just like any other customer service job, honestly.
Yes.
Well, just like if you met someone off the street and you're just trying to get to know them, you might make a crack about yourself, especially like if if you're someone like me who's unfortunate looking, you might make a joke about how you're ugly.
Yeah.
Short people make short jokes. Tall people make tall jokes. It doesn't matter. People crack wise about themselves to put other people at ease. But not Hannah.
No.
I guess, and I don't know. I guess some people might see that as internalizing oppression, like on people across the board. Oh, we shouldn't laugh at ourselves. We should be proud of ourselves.
No, we should laugh at ourselves. Life is much, much easier if you're willing to laugh at yourself, rather than taking yourself deadly seriously all the time.
You shouldn't take yourself that seriously. Like, we all goof. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Let's all laugh together.
Well, there's that, and also like I remember growing up, my dad used to tell me, it's like, if you're pointing fun at somebody else, chances are there's somebody else pointing fun at you.
Yeah.
So I mean, just as that's why I think self-deprecation is pretty good for comedy, because you're recognizing hey, I'm probably going to make fun of somebody else, and that leaves me open for somebody to make fun of me for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, it's just the standard rule. Don't dish it out if you can't take it back. It's just...
Amen.
Exactly.
Don't cook it if you can't eat it.
Exactly, yes.
But, what was it, around the 19-minute mark, I just put a note that said, let the identity politics begin.
Yeah.
Because that's when it really kicked into overdrive.
Well, and I also
the straight white man.
One of her jokes about identity politics that you just mentioned, I didn't understand, was the whole trope about how lesbians don't laugh. Like, I'm not a comedy buff, but I've never heard of that trope that lesbians don't laugh.
I've heard some similar jokes made in the past by different comedians. I remember Ron White always talking about like the trope of like the butch lesbian with the short hair and the flannel shirt and the Wolverine boots.
Yeah, I've heard more it's bull dykes rather than just lesbians in general that have no sense.
Yeah, so that's at the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but there again, she actually comments on her appearance in the special, and let's be honest, she's towards the bull dykes, end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But not aggressive.
I mean, she's even wearing work boots at the end of the special, like after she goes off stage and they do like the little end credit scene.
Yeah.
She's just sitting on her couch drinking her tea with her dogs, wearing a button-up shirt and her work boots. And as a stand-up comedian with an art history degree, I call shenanigans. That woman's never worked a day in her life.
Of course not.
Hence the art degree.
But I thought it was interesting how she managed to fit in like a wage gap and a man-spreading joke like within 30 seconds of each other, talking about the cabin manager at the airline misgendering her.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed the part where she said, "I'm not transgender, but I enjoy a holiday," and then like from there, like she kind of lost me. Like
Yeah,
I got half a chuckle.
I went and saw Christopher Titus a while back, and his wife opened for him.
His wife?
Oh! Did he get
Which-
remarried? Or you're not talking about his ex-wife, are you?
Yeah,
No.
which wife? He's been married a couple times.
That's right. Ray Bradley.
I don't
Okay,
know their names.
I remember his earlier stand-up when he was married to Erin. I think is what her name was.
Yeah. And she went batshit insane on him.
I only know Christopher Titus from his sitcom, so that's where I.
Well, his sitcom was based off of his first real big comedy special called Norman Rockwell is Bleeding.
Yes.
That was the inspiration for that one, and that was a really good stand-up special, and I really enjoyed the show too. Stacy Keach stole that show.
Oh,
He really did.
Rocked it.
But I actually used that when I was in high school. I used Titus's the pilot episode of Titus for a drama competition.
Okay.
We had a deal called Humorous Duet. Me and another guy pretty much took like all the monologue bits and we used it to do a 10-minute comedy special pretty much, and we got first place. I mean,
nice.
Titus, he wrote some good stuff.
Yeah, no, he's a funny comedian.
Have you seen him on Twitter?
Insane, but yeah, he's funny.
I was gonna say, yeah. Have you seen him on Twitter? He's a funny guy, but oh god, he's a pain in the ass on Twitter.
Yeah, like I disagree with his politics, but his material's good.
Try watching him. I think he did a deal with Steven Crowder where they were debating back and forth on Crowder's YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in my watch later playlist, but there's like 1,000 things in my watch later playlist, so I'm sure I'll get to it in the next few months. But I haven't seen it yet.
Take your time.
There's quite a few other stuff.
It looked really good.
And then I'll watch, and then my interest sort of wanes. And then I hear people talking about, oh, you gotta watch Crowder. I'm like, I'll go back up. And then I'll start watching, and then it'll just wane again.
Well, see, like, if I ever watch Crowder, it's usually I'll skip to when he's talking to other people. Like, he's had a couple of MMA fighters on there, you know, like Tim Kennedy and Daniel Cormier. He's had like Dean Cain and a whole bunch of other people on there too. It's like, really, this guy's on talking to Crowder? Okay, let's see what they're talking about. But I usually don't stick around for like the skits or anything like that.
No, I don't think Steven Crowder's that funny when he's doing his sketches and such.
No, although the old Jink Uger skits were pretty spot on.
Those were good.
Though, yeah, I mean, Jink's he's pretty low hanging fruit. I mean, just about anybody should be able to make fun of him.
Yeah, he's low enough hanging fruit that's kind of like a ground score.
But I mean, I guess he got the voice right was my biggest thing. It's like, yeah, that's, you know, if I close my eyes, that kind of does sound like Jink.
I can't hear someone say the word right without thinking of Jink, because I watch Scribe like.
Oh yes, Scribe has pretty much ingrained that into my head. Anytime and then of course I associate Jink saying right with the seagulls from Finding Nemo. So it's kind of like a double whammy whenever I watch one of Scribe's videos.
Like if I ever get... Oh, go ahead.
Roy?
I think if I ever get good enough to do video editing, I'm just going to edit that entire scene just with Chink's face in front.
just superimpose Jink on all of the different seagulls.
Right, and like adjust like their vocal range enough to kind of match him. Make it a little deeper.
Thrown in, of course.
Did you guys watch his debate with what's his name?
Shapiro?
Yeah.
I caught parts of it. I never sat down and watched the whole thing through, just because, you know, it's hard to watch Jink talking about anything.
Oh no, it wasn't like he lost in the first 5 minutes.
Because like, didn't they also have Anna debating Ann Coulter?
Oh yeah.
But my favorite part of the Jink Shapiro interview was Jink was trying to get everyone to start a USA chant, and it just fell flat.
Well,
Dude,
he turned on the audience like immediately.
Ben fucking owned him. Like Matt Christensen did a really good video on that debate. Like, and it got like what, 1 million views. Like, it blew up.
But Well, I mean, it's obvious, that the reason why Jink would try to start the USA chant and it fall flat. He spends all his time bashing the USA, and anybody that went there to follow him, they're not going to join in on that.
Well, that's true.
I mean, the man should know his audience by now.
You would think.
I hate when debaters mock the audience. Like, you're here to convince us, not to like tell us how stupid you perceive us to be. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not in a church. I don't go to church because I don't want you to preach from a pulpit. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Matt Christensen was making fun of, because Jenks said, that's a fact, Google it. And then Matt Christensen was saying, well, as a matter of fact, I did Google it, and here's the result.
Yeah, oh, I love Matt so much. He's such a good creator. Oh.
He's one of my favorites.
Like, if a Google search engine can do your job, you don't have a job.
Basically, yes.
Well, like, I was, for the longest time, I used YouTube pretty much just to watch stand-up comedy and listen to music. And then I found, like, the Young Turks. Because I remember when Jink was on MSNBC for a while. He had his own show there for a minute. A hot minute, but still. And then I remember hearing about him doing the Young Turks. And so I checked it out. And I thought it was funny. I was like, okay, they're reading the news, but they're also swearing. I was like 18, 19, 20. So, it caught my attention better than, the regular news.
Yeah.
And the moment I realized that I was getting too old for the Young Turks, I'd stopped watching them for a while. And then for some reason I came back and they were talking about the protest at the University of Texas at Austin about the open carry on campus. And the protest was called Cocks Not Glocks.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, the dildos.
Yeah, everyone was like strapping a dildo to their backpack to protest open carry on campus.
Classy.
And, yeah, very, very classy because, like sex toys, I guess, were like supposed to be banned on campus. You weren't supposed to be like, having them out in the open. I was like, if you really want to protest open carry on campus, just point at the fucking clock tower.
Right?
I mean, just remind folks, hey, yeah, there was a guy who carried a whole bunch of weapons up that clock tower and shot a bunch of folks.
But what were the circumstances behind that? Like, was he allowed to have that gun there? Like, because it seems to me like a lot of individuals.
That was back in the 60s. I don't think they ever really considered the open carry of firearms back then. But he also had a brain tumor.
There was far less carrying back then too.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of people who save others by having their own, like, conceal and carry and stuff. Like, people say, "Oh, the good guy with the gun is a myth." It's like, not really.
Well,
like,
they're even pushing it now to where they don't want you to even shoot somebody if they break into your own home.
Oh yeah, no, that's garbage. Yeah. Oh.
And I like to point out because just in my state, in Oklahoma, we've had a few cases that have become, major news stories of people breaking into somebody's house and getting shot dead because the owner had a gun. And one of them was a couple years ago in the city of Broken Arrow, right up there. It's a suburb of Tulsa. And these four teenagers broke into this dude's house while he was asleep in the middle of the day, and he had an AR-15, and he dropped all four of them dead.
I think I heard about that, and the dad was on TV saying, "Oh, that's an unfair advantage."
Yeah, the granddad of one of the teenage boys, and the getaway driver. She couldn't understand why she was being charged with capital murder. It's like, well, you were committing a crime, and people died as a result of it. That's plain as day in the law.
Like, and that is a tragedy, but like, you can't be in your own home and have people break in and trust in their altruism. Like,
because those kids, they were also carrying weapons. They had like brass knuckles and all kinds of other stuff on their person.
Right?
So,
like, castle defense, protection of self and home. I believe in that absolutely.
But yeah, like the granddad of one of the dead teenagers, like, he had an AR-15. That wasn't a fair fight. It's like, yeah, well, 4-on-1 isn't a fair fight either, fuckhead.
Amen.
Think about it before you go on TV and start talking about that.
I remember there was a sketch comedy thing about 20 years ago where this guy's in bed, he's a burglar, and so the first thing he does is call his lawyer and ask if he's legally allowed to shoot him. And so he's having this conversation with the lawyer. The burglar breaks in, says, "Yes, I really think he's a threat. Can I shoot him?" Okay, good. So then the burglar grabs the phone and says, "Oi, you said he couldn't shoot me."
I kind of heard a similar joke to that myself. If you guys want to hear it.
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, there's a gentleman. He woke up because he heard racket coming from his garage in the middle of the night. He looks, and there's a flashlight in there, like, Gran Torino style. Like there's someone in there trying to get stuff. He calls the police, and the police say, like, "Oh, we can't be there for a while. We're short on responders." So he stays calm. He hangs up when he gets that answer. He pauses for a moment, for like a minute or so, calls back and he says, "That intruder, don't worry, I shot him dead." In like 2 minutes, there's like an ambulance, several cop cars, like even like a helicopter on the way, and they catch the guy. And the cops are like, "So, you said you shot the guy?" And the gentleman turns around, he says, "Well, I thought you guys said you were short-staffed."
I've heard that too. That's a good one.
Well, I keep going back to like you remember the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, where they talked about the burglar falling through the skylight and cutting himself, and that's why people hate lawyers.
Yeah.
I always go back to that. It's like, well, if you're breaking into somebody's home, you deserve everything you get. Whether you get away with loot or you end up with a bullet hole or a stab wound.
Right, like RPG, you gamble on that shit.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get shot for breaking into people's houses. Don't break into people's houses. I mean, the logic.
That's just basic math, right?
Yeah, like you're not a homeless person stealing food or a teenager making a dumb mistake, like shoplifting. You're breaking into someone's house, where there may be a family, there may be kids, and even if that's not the case, there's still someone there who's worked hard, who has that home, who has stuff they value in there, whether it be people or property or both.
Yeah.
And if you want to fuck someone over, because I doubt you're stealing someone's personal TV for food.
Well, you never hear about somebody breaking into somebody's house just to steal like food,
Yeah,
it's always a TV, it's a stereo, it's furniture.
That would be awesome if someone broke into someone's house, raided the fridge, and left.
That would be hilarious. If I was on that jury, I'd vote not guilty.
I'd be grateful they just took some food. I'd be like, can I even be mad? I don't know.
Oh, I've been trying to get rid of that roast for ages.
Exactly.
I'm fat enough. You might have done me a favor.
Like, well, I was going to start a diet anyway, so, I mean, do I really want to press charges? I really didn't need that second slice of cake. But, no, was it going back? Because I've got a couple of small pages of notes here. What was it?
Actually, before you get started,
okay.
Going back to Matt Christensen, I had first heard of him when I think it was a Sugar Tits video. And then I started watching his stuff, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this guy's from Bozeman. Like, he's one city over from me.
Oh, yeah?
And,
well, I mean, in Montana, that could be a stretch, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half from here. And, and I'm like, it's kind of weird how I'm a fan of a guy from Bozeman who I heard from someone from Australia.
Ain't the internet great?
That's pretty cool.
I keep saying, if all else fails, I would move to a place like Montana if it wasn't so damn cold in the winter. Because, I mean, down here, it can get cold, but it doesn't get anywhere near that cold. I think we might get like 20 below freezing, at the worst of it.
Yeah, we hit, I think last year we had our coldest, and I think it was negative 50 something.
Oh, sweet Jesus. No way. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the cold either. I mean, I'm in Australia, so I'm sort of programmed to be allergic to the cold. It's like,
I disagree. I'd rather be in the cold than the heat, because in the cold you can put so many layers on, do so many things, but in the heat you can only get so naked.
Very true. Very true. But I
And then
mean,
you
like
just smell.
at a certain point, though, it gets so cold that it hurts to breathe, and that's where I draw the line.
well, for me, it's more a matter of the summer gets hot and it's annoying, and the winter gets cold and that's annoying. But the heat is what I'm used to because it's hot most of the time. So when it's suddenly cold, I have a hard time adjusting to it. I'm sure if I lived somewhere cold, I'd get used to that too. But from where I am,
Terry, I've got a question for you. Are you of the same mind as I am that you just can't help but laugh when you hear the British complaining about their quote unquote heat wave?
Yeah.
God.
Pansies.
He's familiar with my freedom, or he's called Badger Man now.
Yeah, yeah.
He's always complaining about the heat in Germany, and I'm always calling him a pussy for being bothered by it. Like he's like, no, it's too hot. I'm not going to stream today. He's like, come on, you pussy. He's like,
I looked up the converter difference, and a lot of like UK and stuff friends that I have, it's like 92 or 93 at most. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
summers here can get like 115, 120.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's there's fire everywhere.
Well,
Cool story, bro.
I was telling I was talking to somebody in Discord the other day, and he's from the greater Massachusetts area, so up in the Northeast. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, we can get temperatures ranging from 20 below freezing to 110, 115 in the summer, and then on top of that, you have to deal with wildfires, you have to deal with tornadoes, which apparently they're just now getting tornadoes in the Northeast, and they don't know what to do with them. And they're getting like the baby tornadoes too, like the F1s, the F2s. But we also get earthquakes now, thanks to the great invention of fracking. And none of our structures are really built for earthquakes, so
That's a conundrum.
I'm pretty lucky that there's not a lot of natural disasters in. Well, at least I don't think in Australia in general, but certainly not where I am in Sydney. Yeah, I can't think of any that have really happened in my lifetime.
You don't
Certainly
need
no
natural
tornadoes.
disasters in Australia. You have nature. Isn't that enough to kill you in Australia?
But Australia
Okay.
doesn't exist.
That's also
That's
true.
right.
Did you guys hear about that article from the Flat Earthers? How
Yes.
Australia is fictional? I died laughing. And like the airfares are on it too. They're charging us. They're sending people to the kiwi farms.
I try not to rag on Australia too much because most of what I have learned about Australia through my lifetime has been related to Crocodile Dundee or The Simpsons. So I don't.
Not ideal sources, no.
Yeah, not the most reliable sources.
I got one Australian buddy. Like, poor guy. He's so fed up with the place. In some situations, I don't know.
Now that I actually get to talk to an Australian, I am deadly curious. Do the toilets actually flush backwards?
They do.
Okay, so Bart Simpson didn't lie to me. That's all I wanted to know.
And kangaroos can swim, but they look really funny swimming.
I've heard multiple answers as to whether the toilets go backwards. So I've seen some say yes, some say no, and I don't know which direction the toilets flush in America, so I can't really compare. But
They go clockwise.
Well, how about we go flush our toilets and see? We got one guy in Sydney and 2 Americans here, or 3 Americans here. Forgive me.
we can do the experiment if you would like.
Well, yeah, let's all pause the stream, do a Chinese fire drill real fast, and go flush our toilets. We get this sorted once and for all.
But yes, Crocodile Dundee is very funny, but not indicative of actual Australian life. Maybe it's indicative of if you're in the bush, because I could believe that, but not in the cities, no.
Well, I take that back. There's also like that one Australian horror movie I saw. Oh, I can't even remember Wolf Creek, I think is what it was.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
I've never even heard of it.
It's like torture porn, pretty much. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not really so much a horror movie as it is like the anti-tourism advert for Australia. You know, it's just some guy out in the backwoods just picking off tourists. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, it doesn't sound like my kind of movie. I generally prefer comedies. I like laughing.
I do too, but every now and then somebody will tell me about
comedy.
one. Every now and then someone will tell me about a horror. Oh man, I saw this horror movie. It was so twisted. It's like, okay, you just dared me to watch this. And then of course, you know, I accept the challenge, and then I get pissed off at them, you know, later on because I actually sat down and watched it. It's like, why did you tell me about that movie?
Well, that's like The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh God.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
I got depressed like halfway through the movie. I'm like, I can't watch this anymore.
Well, like for me, it was the Human Centipede.
I refuse to watch it.
Good call. But like then I find out like they made like a sequel, and I think they made like a third one. I was like, how do you?
They made three of those abominations.
The second one was kind of like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. I've never watched the third one. I have no intention of watching the third one. I don't know what they could possibly do to make that any worse, and I really don't want to find out.
No, that's a movie that I am not going to be watching.
Have you seen Blair Witch 2?
There's a Blair Witch 2?
Yes.
I barely made it through the first one because, like, well, first the whole found footage genre just makes me nauseous, and I refuse to watch a movie that I have to take Dramamine to sit through.
Well, I lost interest when I found out that the Blair Witch wasn't Blair White. It's like, okay,
that would have made it so much better. Dude, why hasn't she done like a spoof skit about that?
She really should.
Just a trap haunting the woods.
Right.
Call it the Blair Bitch Project.
There you go.
There you go.
There is this really good horror genre spoof called Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Oh yeah, yes, that's a good one. Anything Alan Tudyk is in, I will sit down and watch.
It's a great amount of gore and comedy. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was a very, very funny movie. I did enjoy that one.
But with Blair Witch 2, I watched it when I was working a night shift, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit around and watch this movie, you know, whatever. And I went through it.
Oh, Vincent's in chat. It's my buddy Vince. Sorry.
Yeah, I told you guys that earlier. Yeah, and I sat there, we made it through the movie. Well, I made it through the movie. And I realized at the end of the movie that I could have been working. And I'm
that's got to be a really bad movie if you can be like, oh yeah, you know, I could have been doing something productive.
It's like I feel like I just burnt lifetime away from me.
Yeah.
That I could have been spent doing something.
Kill brain cells in a fun way.
Well, I mean that's how I feel anytime somebody, you know, has me sit down and watch a movie that, you know, like what really gets me is like the like those indie movies that people really dig, that, you know, it's kind of hit or miss. Like there was one, I remember in high school, this girl that I knew really wanted me to sit down and watch SLC Punk with her. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen that. It's got a Matthew Lillard.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. But I didn't talk to her for months after sitting through that. And the only thing I could tell her when I did talk to her was like, that's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, because she was hit or miss with the movie. You know, she's the one that introduced me to the Boondock Saints. I was like, that's a pretty good movie. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, you know, off the power of that first recommendation, I set through SLC Punk. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Good.
Huh?
I like SLC Punk. I think that's a good movie.
I mean, like I said, you know, taste is subjective, and it just was not up to my standards, I guess.
To each their own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like she was evangelizing this movie. It was great. I was like, we have divergent views. That's the nicest way I can say it.
There are some movies you can do that, but you gotta be real careful.
Yeah, I don't watch movies anymore. I kind of discovered video games, and then that just sort of replaced TV and movies almost entirely. So, yeah, I haven't watched a movie in a decade and a half.
I haven't gone to the movies in a while. I mean, I still watch movies from time to time, but it's always on streaming services now. Netflix, Hulu. But like the last movie I went to go see in the theaters was Deadpool.
I was just about to say, like, only like super uber popular stuff do I see in theaters. Like, but yeah, like everything I see is on Netflix or Kodi or what have you.
If I get a strong enough recommendation, I'll check iTunes to see if I can get it off there, because I don't have Netflix because I don't watch TV or movies, so it's kind of a waste of money.
Right.
So I did get Tucker and Dale versus Evil off iTunes, but very, very sparingly. It's like I wouldn't go to the movies. I wouldn't buy a DVD unless it was something that I'd already seen and knew that I liked. So, I'm not a movie person, so I would not be one to talk to Scribe. I don't think. I think he's very movie oriented.
I do like catching those movies you should have watched every now and then, you know?
Yeah.
Just because it's nice to get a perspective on movies that maybe I haven't seen yet or that I haven't watched in a while.
Yeah, that's the only stuff of theirs that I don't watch, really. I don't watch Satsu's gaming streams because I don't really like watching other people play games. It just doesn't do anything for me. And I don't watch the movie streams because I don't care about movies nearly enough.
The one thing that I can say, though, that I really disagree with Scribe and Monkey on is The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, okay. I've not seen that.
Me either.
It's not a bad movie, but Sean Connery in just about anything other than a Bond movie takes me right out of it. Highlander. He never does. He's a Russian submarine captain, and he's speaking like a fucking Scotsman.
Yes.
How am I supposed to take you? How am I supposed to suspend my disbelief for this movie?
That's very standard Sean Connery. He only ever plays himself. He doesn't actually play characters. He's just himself, and everyone acts around him.
But yeah, I mean, so Highlander. His character's name, the Spaniard, full blown fucking Scotsman.
Scots.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd probably be like one of the few things where like I'd have to vehemently disagree. I'm like, nope, sorry.
Well, it's like the closest. What is it? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
Isn't he supposed to be like British?
I don't remember. That's his last movie. That's the last movie he ever. That movie retired him from acting. It was so bad.
Oh, how old is that movie? Like
late 90s, early 2000s.
I think I might have saw it. I can't remember. Did it have an invisible dude?
Yeah. It had the Invisible Man. It had what is that guy's name? I can't remember, but he played Dorian Gray.
Yes. Okay, I saw that.
Yeah, they had a
2003.
There you go. But yeah, it's like I never actually sat down and watched that because I heard an interview where Sean Connery talked about it. He's like, yeah, that's the reason why I quit taking acting jobs.
Oh.
I was like, man, if that movie is so bad, it made Sean Connery quit after like 40 years of acting. I really don't want to watch it.
Look, if you think that's a bad movie, the Street Fighter movie killed Raul Julia. As far as
Literally killed him.
Like he died as soon as that movie was finished being made.
It gave him cancer.
And
So yeah, that is officially the worst movie in existence because I don't think any others have killed the main actors.
At least they didn't put him in the game.
Well, I mean, the Crow killed their main actor.
Oh, yeah,
shot him right in the chest. Yeah.
That's also equally the worst movie in existence. Then
see, that's my SLC punk.
Movie.
That's my SLC punk right there. For the longest time when I was growing up, if I had a friend or an acquaintance who hadn't seen it, I would make them sit down and watch it. And half the time I would get the same reaction I gave that girl with SLC punk. They're just like, I could have been doing something else, anything else. It's like, but it's Brandon Lee. They're like, I don't care.
So what is your creme de la creme of movies?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'd probably go with Fight Club, or maybe trying to think of another movie that I really liked. Well, for me, the one with Fight Club is you don't get everything the first time you watch it. You got to kind of watch it a couple times to catch all of it. Like, it took me multiple viewings before I realized they were actually splicing single frames of porn into the movie, like the character does.
The thing I loved about Fight Club was I didn't watch it until much, much later. So the entire time I was watching, it was like, oh, that's what they were referring to when they made that joke.
Yeah, you finally get all the references.
Yeah, the last 10 years worth of references are like, okay, now it makes sense. Okay, that's what they were talking about. Okay.
Well, I came into it because that was, 1999?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I want to say that was like 98, 99. And I'm fairly young. I'm just now about to turn 30. So back then I was still a wee pup. And my mom was this was the era of Blockbuster Video. So I couldn't rent Fight Club on my own. I had to have parental consent.
Yes.
And but I didn't come into it until much later. But I had a library card. And I knew that it was based off of a book.
Right.
And being a poor small town kid from Oklahoma, my mom didn't give a fuck what I read, as long as I was reading.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, the moral of the story, kids, is there's always a loophole. You just got to find it.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah, there's always finer print in the finer print.
Yeah. I remember one time I tried to rent an R-rated movie, and I was one day too young, and they wouldn't give it to me. Like, it was the day before my 18th birthday, and they just said, "No, come back tomorrow."
Oh man!
I forget what movie it was. I think it was Dusk Till Dawn. I think that's what it was. I tried to rent From Dusk Till Dawn, and they said, "No, come back tomorrow because you're one day too young to rent it."
See, From Dusk Till Dawn is one of the reasons why, no matter what happens with Mexico, I forgive them. They gave us Selma Hayek. They're cool in my book.
They made a TV series out of the whole movie thing.
Well, Robert Rodriguez has his own TV network now.
Oh.
The El Rey Network.
It's all his crap.
But yeah, so thankfully with that library card, I really got into. I can never remember how to pronounce that dude's last. Chuck Palahniuk. I can't pronounce his last name. Huh?
Oh, I don't know how to pronounce it either, but I know who you mean.
But yeah, so I've managed to get a hold of a bunch of his different books throughout the years that way, and after seeing the adaptation they made out of Choke, I hope they never make another one of his books into a movie again. You know, just leave it at Fight Club.
I think that's probably good advice, just in general. Turning books into movies is very hit and miss. It's like either it works brilliantly or it's a disaster.
Well, there's a lot more success when you turn books into TV series where you're allowed to actually like delve more into like the original story and lore and like expand upon it, like Dexter and Outlander, like
Game of Thrones.
I would agree.
Yeah, all of that.
I bought a bottle of champagne when Outlander became a TV show. I'm not even joking. Like I love it. And I've been reading the novels like since I found like a paperback copy of the first book in my grandma's garage when I was a teenager.
Although I have to say, even though Stephen King has, you know, the Trump derangement syndrome,
Oh,
a lot of his books have made great movies. I think Shawshank Redemption is like one of the top movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like critically, and like even his worst movie is still pretty great in my opinion. Can anyone guess which one that is?
The Mist or the Fog or whatever.
Nope.
Stand.
The worst one. The worst.
The Secret Window.
The worst Stephen King movie was actually directed by Stephen King when he was high as eagle balls on cocaine, and that's Maximum Overdrive.
Oh
yeah, I love that movie.
I love it too. But I mean, like now I go back and I watch some of the ones that they made, like the original It. Like I made my mom sit down and watch that because for some reason she had never seen it, and I'd know that she had seen. You know, she'd walk through the living room at times when I was a kid when I was watching it. It's like, how have you never seen this? I was like, it's great, and then we sit down and watch it. I'm sitting there like, yeah, I remember this differently. Now that nostalgia really clouded my.
Well, it'll do that.
I was so young when I watched it. I couldn't swim in swimming pools for like months because I was afraid of the drain at the bottom. I'm like, that's just big enough.
For 3 weeks.
Oh well, yeah. I avoided the school gym locker room showers for years after that. It's like, no, I'll just wait till I get home. But I mean, like Nightmare on Elm Street, that had me jumping into my bed as a kid for years because I was afraid Freddy Krueger was under there going to swipe me.
You think it'd have the opposite effect? You'd be getting out of the bed because that's where you fall asleep.
You would think, yeah. I mean, but then again, I was a kid. Nothing made sense. So
fair enough.
There you go.
No, my sisters made it a point when we were watching Nightmare on Elm Street we lived like 10 miles outside of the middle of nowhere. And so my oldest sister would be like, oh yeah, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And she'd get up, and instead of going to the bathroom, she'd run out the back door and just like take a rake and just grind it against the siding on the house.
Oh man. Just
freak us the hell out.
I can imagine, yes. That would freak people out.
See, like I never really had a problem with horror movies. You know, I love the old, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween. You know, because eventually, you know, you get enough of those movies together, they start turning into comedies. You know,
yeah.
Like I think Nightmare on Elm Street, was it 3 or 4? It just really started just becoming a comedy. It jumped the shark entirely.
That's what the third one. That's what The Grudge became to me. Like when that chick got pulled in the mirror, like in the second or third one, I'm like, that's ridiculous. I was actually laughing. Like she's in. Oh.
But the movie that got me, which, you know, it's not supposed to be like a straight up horror movie or anything like that, but it scared the shit out of me, was Snakes on a Plane.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that.
I hate snakes and I hate flying, and somehow they combine like my 2 worst fears into one. I'm 30,000 feet in the air and now there are snakes everywhere. Fuck no. No.
Where do you go?
I remember, speaking of being forced to watch movies, my girlfriend at the time insisted that I watch Shrek, And she was absolutely devastated when halfway through I said, "Look, I'm not saying this is how the movie ends, but if I was writing the movie, this is how I would end it." And she's like, should we even watch the rest of it?"
Spot on, were you?
Oh yeah, apparently, like we did end up watching the rest of it, and it's like, "Yep, called it."
Yeah, that's like my family, because movies were like my thing all throughout, childhood into adulthood until recently when they just started remaking everything.
Yeah.
And so now, whether it's a remake or not, like my friends and family, they can't sit there and watch with me because I just start calling it out. Like, have you seen this movie before? No, never watched it before in my life. And or I'll call out like the inconsistencies, like when they have continuity errors and stuff like that.
Do you contribute to IMDb in their goofs section?
I don't know. What got me though, like I have a buddy who's actually, he graduated high school around the same time I did, and then he moved off to California to try and be an actor.
Hmm.
And he got extra work and stuff like that. He actually got to be in a few episodes of some different shows. Like I think he played the victim on an episode of The Mentalist. He was in an episode of a Jim Jeffries show, Legit, back when it was still on FX.
Wow.
Before they switched it over to FXXX or whatever.
They made it a porn channel.
Yeah. But so like he and I would always talk movies, and I would pick his brain about like the behind the scenes stuff, like when you're sitting there on set. And that's what made me realize that I wanted no part of the movie industry, because that sounds just boring as all get out.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you just, sometimes you'll be sitting there for like 12 hours, 16 hours, not doing nothing. And then, they'll have you come in for like 5-10 minutes and then you're off again, or maybe they'll have you come in and get the lighting right for, you'll be the stand-in to get the lighting right. And then, you get kicked off until they got to set up another scene. It's like, so what the hell do you do when you're waiting? He's like, not a lot really. Cause you're sitting there, you may be in costume or, whatever. And, it's not your clothes. They don't want you fucking up the makeup they spent, however much time putting on you. So you sit in a chair, maybe you snack on some food, try and talk to people without being too loud. It's like,
what if the entire movie industry is just a practical joke on the actors, just to see what they'll put up with?
Well, like that TV show Yellowstone that they're coming out with. One of the friends of my sister is an extra on there, and in one of the scenes, he's supposed to walk up and hand Wes Bentley a note, and or Wes Bentley is supposed to hand him a note or something like that he's supposed to give to someone else. And in each of the takes, he's like, okay, I gotta start. I want to know what's on this note, because he sees him writing something on there. And so he grabs the note and just looks at it while he's walking it over, and it just says sushi. And then it goes to the next one, it's like prime rib. And then goes to the next one, it's like pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one, he said it didn't have anything written on it. And then in the next take, he looked at the note and it just said sorry.
I like that. That's good.
But no, I realized talking to my buddy that they're just people. Some of them can be cool, some of them can be shitbags, and that really killed like watching award shows and stuff for me, because this was probably about 10 years ago that he and I really started talking about his experience in movies. And what I thought was hilarious is, after he left to go to California, go to this dramatic arts academy and try and land himself a big star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, they started making movies in our hometown.
Oh.
Oh, I mean, the irony.
Yeah, I mean, not like, you know, it didn't become any big hub for movie making, but every now and then, like I think like a Nick Cassavetes movie got made out here. You know, they shot another one at like one of the local, you know, prisons. You know, and it's like, so I would just call him up like, hey, guess what, dude? They need extra work here in town. He's like, what? Like, oh yeah, man. You know, they're making such and such movie. He's like, really? Yep. Like, how's California treating you? You know, it's like, oh well, you know, I'm working at Trader Joe's to make my rent while I, you know, go on auditions.
We were thinking about putting my son into like to do like theater type stuff, but it's like $600 for like 6 months of classes.
Ouch.
So we're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And so they're actually filming a movie in my hometown. And I was like, hey, you know, they're looking for, I was talking to my ex and I'm like, hey, they're looking for extras for this movie. And they're looking for someone. And I think he would be a decent role for him. And she goes, okay, well, what's the movie about? And I'm like, well, the arrest of the Unabomber. And she's like, nope. Like, nope, dude, no, he's not doing that. Like, we're not. And I'm like, well, it's a movie. But yeah, she was against it.
Yeah, they've started making a whole bunch of stuff about, like, you know, the different 90s scandals now, haven't they? Like, Netflix had a whole series about the Unabomber with Paul Bettany and Sam Worthington. And then they had was it on one of the networks, I think, where they did a series about Waco? It had, like, John Leguizamo and is it Taylor Kitsch, I think's his name.
Well, I know they had God, what the hell's his name? It just entered my head. The guy who played Brian Hackett on Wings, or Joe Hackett.
Brian was played by Steven Weber, yeah. Crap, I can't think of his name now either.
I gotta look that up.
I'll be right back, guys. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Not Buffalo Wild Wings. Come on. Tim Daly.
Oh, yes, I know who you mean.
The guy who is actually, he used to be the voice of Superman, and now his son does it.
I think he was in an episode of Monk where he was playing himself. And then, like, the question was, who's Tim Daly? And he himself said, nobody knows.
How cute.
Yeah, I think the only one who didn't, the only ones who weren't in that TV show was, I think, John Ritter's wife and Roy.
Roy was Thomas Hayden Church, was it?
No, David Schramm.
Oh.
Thomas Hayden Church.
Oh, yeah, the mechanic.
Yeah, that's right. Getting everyone mixed up. But yeah, I forgot that Tony Shalhoub was on Wings because I haven't seen it in ages. So it makes sense that he'd get all his friends for Monk.
Which is as a matter of coincidence, that name yourself in 3 fictional characters that Gabby sent me.
Oh yeah, that Twitter challenge. Yeah.
One of mine was Lowell.
What Twitter challenge was this now?
It was a screen caption that said, describe yourself in 3 fictional characters and tag like 5 other people. And so I tagged Johnny in one of them, I believe. And it was something I was sent by 2 other people. So like Why not? I'm a sucker for Twitter challenges. Let's do it.
3 fictional characters. Oof.
I like-
That's a.
I was like, this is like Facebook.
But only faster. Like, Facebook is now on dial-up. The memes are on Twitter, my friend.
Oh, I pissed my girlfriend off with that because she's on Facebook and I'm on Twitter, and so she'll walk over with her phone all excited to show me this meme, and it's kind of like a meme in and of itself because I'll glance, I'd be like, yeah, I saw that already.
Twitter is way ahead of Facebook in terms of memes.
Well, I think that's mainly because like you can be anonymous on Twitter. You can't really do that on Facebook.
No, they've got a rule that you have to use your real name on Facebook, I believe.
Well,
You can't use a fake sounding name.
I managed to pull it off actually, but I had to.
Your name is Hate Camel?
No, I changed it just ever so slightly, and I made it.
Camel?
No, I made the last name Camel, and just with the avatar being Joe Camel, I made the first name Joseph.
Oh, okay.
So I'm never on there, So I mean, it's just a dead page with the same avatar, but nothing's posted on it. There's no friends. There's no likes. Or I think I might have been following like Sargon's Facebook page.
Okay.
But I realized after I made that, I was like, why am I wasting my time doing it? I'm never on Facebook.
Yeah.
A friend of mine made a second one under the name Ismail Mudaib, which is a character off Dune.
Okay. That's one of those I've never got around to watching, actually, or reading. I keep hearing people talk about it from time to time, and I was like, I should check that out, and then I never do.
I tend to do that with everything. I'll hear something, oh, that sounds really cool, I should check that out. And then I'll just forget about it.
Right, like I make a mental note on my whiteboard, and then like it gets erased until someone brings it back up again. Like, oh yeah, forgot. I need to watch that or read that.
Yeah.
I have a mental note in my brain, and it is immediately erased.
I have a mental whiteboard, but no markers, so.
Mental whiteboard, and all the markers don't work.
Yeah.
They're all dried out.
Exactly. Yeah. I use Facebook for like family and people that I'm friends with in real life, but that's the extent of it. I use Twitter for like actual, where I spend most of my time, because that's where my internet friends are and where all the interesting stuff is.
Exactly. Like I made a Facebook when I was like an exchange student, and then for like maybe a few, like 2 or 3 years after that, and then I haven't touched it in like 7 years, other than to see if I could still access it. But I haven't deleted it, but I don't fucking use it.
I did that with my MySpace page.
Can you? I never found out if you could actually delete a MySpace page. I think I might still have one. But
same here. I probably do too.
I mean,
I know I made one.
Like, yeah, because I made one, and then my girlfriend at the time, she had just moved off to college, and she got on the whole Facebook kick, which I should have known right away that it wouldn't work out between us because she was an early adopter. I'm a late adopter. Like, I just got Twitter last year.
I think I did too.
Well, my Twitter's new too, 2017. It's like barely a year old.
Because way back in 2008 or something, I signed up for Twitter because I was playing an online game that needed a Twitter account. But it wasn't until last year that I actually started using it as a Twitter account. And that was because I wanted to send news stories into MSS News. That was the entire reason I started using my Twitter account. And then I started interacting with all the people that watch Monkey. And then it's like, okay, well, now that I've got friends on here, I might as well keep doing this.
Yeah, YouTube is the reason why I went ahead and got Twitter, because working whatever odd job I might have been doing at the time, if you have a few enough subscriptions, enough channels you're subscribed to, those add up, and
yeah, they get buried.
for the longest time, my watch later history was like Terry's. It's like I had hundreds of videos. Like, there's no way I'm getting through all of these.
Yeah.
But
Well, I started with like you said earlier, music, and then a friend of mine is like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Mr. Medicare?" And I'm like, "No, I've never done. I look up movie trailers and music videos, so no."
as much as I enjoy Jim, he really makes me question my faith in humanity. Just, I mean, the shit he drags up from the depths of the internet. You know, I'm surprised he doesn't have all the cancer yet.
He probably does. Hang on, I'm just gonna get that.
All right. Yeah, I don't know how he and like that whole thing with was it Ross?
Oh yeah, Ross.
How that does not end in like 10 gallons of whiskey, I don't know.
Oh.
That could be why he started a Patreon, just to pay for the alcohol he needs to scrub his brain after going through Tumblr and all that shit.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he used to dump on people who had a Patreon? Did he like change his mind on that topic, or am I mistaken?
He actually did a video on it, to where he's like, "Yeah, I guess I'm a whore now."
But like the one that just turned my stomach was the pausing the neg hole video.
Oh God, yes, that was horrible.
I was like, how did he make it through just the research portion, not let alone like the video editing and the scripting? Because I sure as hell couldn't do that sober.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing that says he did it sober, to be fair.
Well, I have no experience with any video editing or scripting or anything like that, so I would have to be sober to be able to perform those tasks.
And I was talking to my friend. I'm like, if anyone, I think if anyone were to dox Mr. Medicare, like that would be the equivalent to learning that Santa doesn't exist in kindergarten.
Well, I mean, doesn't Medicare have like 2 pictures where he shows his face? Like he wears shades and everything, but he's like brunette and like.
No, that's not him.
I was gonna say, I was like if that's him, I would be surprised.
I think he has been doxed.
I think that's just something he stumbled upon. Although it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
I would have assumed that he'd been doxed by now, just by nature of what he does. That someone would have had it in for him, and
right, like
Allison from
all the controversy.
The Honey Badgers was trying to get.
Oh, it was Allison trying to get. I thought it was Karen.
No, it was Karen. My bad. I got mixed up.
I remember seeing them going back and forth on Twitter a couple months ago.
Yeah, Karen wants
Karen
Strawn.
Because he did an expose on them about shilling for stuff.
But yeah, I sat there because I mean I enjoy the Honey Badgers from time to time, you know, and but yeah, seeing her trying to go back and forth with Medicare on Twitter, I was like, oh, this is not going to end well.
No, I think she was at the depths.
It's like you're coming to a gunfight with like a 6-shooter, and he's got a fucking tank.
Pretty much, he lives for this stuff. I mean,
he's got all the guns.
Yeah. Anytime I see someone trying to step to Medicare, I always just imagine that that deal from The Dark Knight Rises with Bane, you know, talking to Batman. It's like, you know, you only adopted the dark. He was raised in it.
Yeah. God.
Well, I guess Kilroy next year is going to be a lot of fun. I was there last year. I'm going to be there next year. So let's see how that goes. Let's see if he makes another video.
Was it actually fun, or was it?
No, it was a goddamn blast. It was great.
Yeah, it's a bit too far away for me to go to, but I will enjoy watching videos that are inevitably made about it.
I like keeping my social interactions online just because I'm too lazy to put on pants.
It's understandable.
I mean, the fun part about being a female, you just throw on a dress, people say you dressed up, and it's only one article of clothing.
There you go.
You look cute, female privilege, and you don't even have to try.
If anyone's been talking to me in the Minions chat, you'll know I don't go outside. And Kilroy sounds like I would need me to go outside to get there. So even if it was next door, no, too far away.
But I mean, you could stay at the hotel where all like the panels and stuff are. You don't have to leave the compound.
No, to get there, I would have to go.
Yeah, he would have to leave his physical. He would have to leave his physical location.
Yeah,
to get to the airport and on the plane.
Yes, there would be going outside involved in getting to Kilroy. So even if it was next door, no.
I'm much the same way. The only time I leave my house is to go to work. I go to work, I come home. That's about it.
See, I used to be like that, but now I don't need to work anymore. So there's nothing that is compelling me to leave the house except for, occasional solicitor dramas with my grandfather's estate. But other than that, I can just stay inside and never even be aware of the outside world. So I'm happy with this situation.
It's nice to have those moments, but like, I mean, as an introvert too, it's like you gotta. Kilroy was like when I first put myself out there as well, and I had such a great time, and friendships were made, and it's just you got to go out once in a while.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily an introvert. I'm just lazy, and I admit it.
I'm both. I'm lazy and introverted, and as a result, I'm basically a hermit. I don't have any offline interactions that I can avoid. People deliver me food, and I say thank you, and that's the extent of my socializing.
Yeah, if my IRL friends want to socialize with me, they know they have to come to me. There is you have to bring the mountain to Muhammad in this case. And occasionally I'll get the odd like Jehovah's Witness or something knock on my door. Other than that,
or the Mormons.
Actually, I haven't had any Mormons show up. It's been like the Witnesses. They have a local chapter somewhere hereabouts, and every now and then, they'll knock. But like when I do have to go outside, especially during the summertime, being a dirty half-breed, because I'm part Indian, I get brown really, really fast. And so, like, when they show up, they always show up in the summertime, too. I'm nice and brown by then, and then I just answer the door. I took a page out of the Eddie Griffin playbook, because he talked about the Witnesses showing up to his place. And I don't know if you guys know who Eddie Griffin is, stand-up comedian, actor.
I know of him. I'm not super familiar with his work.
Yeah, but he talked about them showing up, and I think this is a Dysfunctional Family was the name of the stand-up he talked about this one on. Them showing up to his house, so he just stripped down bare-ass naked and had like a chicken that he pulled out of the freezer to thaw and act like he was doing a voodoo ritual when they knocked on his door. And so I saw that when I was probably in my early teens, and that stuck with me. And then finally, they showed up and knocked at my door. Worked like a charm. They hit, they beat tracks so fast.
I don't blame them.
I don't either, and that's exactly why I did it.
I had one show up in my house. He was an older guy, and I was in the process of writing a story just to see if I would, if it was something I could take off with. And I was just sort of like a prevent the end of the world type thing. And it had to do with religion. And he's like, "Oh, I got this great kind of pamphlet on how the world's going to end." I'm like, "All right, I'll take it." Like, And so we'd spend half an hour, 45 minutes talking about how like different religions, worlds ends. Essentially just total human eradication for 45 minutes.
Okay. See, my attitude is I will die before the universe does, and in the worst case scenario, it'll happen at the same time, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Fair enough.
Well, I think it was Mormons again. No, not Mormons. Jehovah's Witnesses. Aren't they the ones that believe that like only like 12,000 people from each of the 12 tribes of Israel get into heaven, or is that somebody else I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
Because if it's somebody else I'm thinking of, then that's the group that knocked on my door. I was living in a college town when I was like 17, and somehow I'd managed to talk my mother into letting me move out underage. She finally just got tired of my shit, I think.
A win-win.
Exactly, yeah, you know. But so I'm living on my own in this college town, and these dudes knock on my door. And here's the thing: whenever you let like a 17-year-old kid out on his own, and you let him move to a college, you're like leaving a kid in a candy store overnight. You know, shit's just gonna get broken, and you know. So I think I was drunk the night before, and I was still probably a little drunk when they knocked at like 7 in the morning. You know, the sun had barely come up, and I guess they were having like a firefighters parade, like, you know, the street down from me, because every siren in town seemed like it was going off. My hair hurt. That's how hungover I was. And these dudes come bebopping up to my door, and they knock. And instead of being my usual grumpy self, since I'm not a morning person, I went ahead and let them in and listen to their spiel. And they thought that, you know, maybe they were, they got their foot in the door. They were thinking they were doing all right. And then I started asking them questions. And because these guys, they couldn't have been much older than me, you know, 18, 19-year-old dudes. And when they told me, you know, that only 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel were going to get into heaven, that's when I stopped them. I was like, okay, pause. Wait a second. 12,000 people from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not the greatest math student in the world. That's 144,000 people, yeah? Like, yeah. Right? You're right. I was like, okay, there's like 7 billion people in the world today, not counting all the people that came before. So if only 144,000 are getting in, why are you guys telling anybody?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Like, if it were me, I wouldn't be advertising that. You know, I'd want as few people in that lottery pool as possible to try and get my chances up, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, well, it made sense to them too, and they left just kind of like, okay. They didn't really have a response to that because, like I said, they couldn't have been. They weren't even drinking age, I don't think.
It says here it's Latter-day Saints. So, yeah, they're Mormons.
So, yeah, Mormons. Okay, that's what it was. But, yeah, they had no comeback to that. I was like, you guys should really ask yourself these questions before you go trying to convert people.
Yeah.
Because, like, if a guy who is hungover and can't even vote yet can poke holes in your religion,
that's not a good sign.
Guys, just keep telling me to get the fuck off Twitter. I'm browsing my Twitter right now, and I hate it. It's garbage. It's garbage.
Of course it's garbage. It's Twitter. That's what makes it great.
It's bigger garbage than normal.
Here lately, I've been following more and more people. Oh, somebody must have got suspended again.
Plenty of people did. The Amazing Atheist, Mike Hidley, Interpartisan got suspended too.
Okay, did Mike Headley get suspended again? Because
again.
I followed his new account that he posted yesterday.
Oh no, not the new account, but I'm talking about like in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I was following that one too. But I had 520, and now I'm down to 519 following again.
Yeah, there was a purge. Like I lost like 7 followers, and I somehow like lost like 4 or 5 following.
Well, half of my followers are bots, so I don't even pay attention to my follower count.
Hey Johnny, how do you feel about the bots?
Well, since half of what follows me is porn bots, yeah.
See, I've got that. I've got that too. Like more than a few, like cam girl accounts and whatnot following. It's like, yeah, I'm not following you back. I'm not checking out your cam shows. I'm not subscribing to your porn website. But
Well,
thanks for artificially boosting my numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I put I sent a tweet out. It was sort of a scribe-esque joke, and I'm like, well, at least I think I'm funny. Well, at least half my porn bots do.
Oh,
And the first 3 people that liked it were all the porn bots.
oh my god. That's perfect.
I love this story every time I hear it.
Well, like I realized as soon as I joined Twitter how active the bots were, because I had like 3 followers before I even sent out my first tweet. So I made my first tweet about how odd it was that these people were following me before I sent out a tweet. Like I had Ben Bailey, the cash cab guy.
Yeah, he followed me too.
And another one was Alveda C. King, the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. I was like, she's really not paying attention to her Twitter if she's following me. Because, I mean, at that point, all it was my avatar and my name.
Maybe she just really liked both.
maybe she thought I was like the racism watch camel. I don't know.
Oh man, and there's so many more spin-offs of that too. Like,
Oh god, yeah.
But what's funny to me is that as I've spent more time on here and I started following more and more people, it's just funny how the interactions on here are just as shitty as I thought they would be when I first signed up. And it's always funny to see like who's losing their shit on which day. Like, we just had those special elections and whatnot this week in some districts in the U.S. And so, like, all the left-leaning people that I follow are just, going completely apeshit about it. Why would you vote for the Green Party? You're throwing away your vote.
right? Like, a
you
vote
want.
for anyone other than the DNC is a vote for Trump. Like, no, fuck you.
Well, I mean, that's the politics is part of the reason why I went ahead and got off Facebook entirely. And just watching on Twitter, at least this way, I can sit back and point and laugh, and nobody knows exactly who I am. Whereas when I did it on Facebook, it was just fight after fight after fight. With people who actually know me, and it's like, okay, this isn't going to work out.
After they announced who was running for president, my first Facebook post is, "Can we just get a restart?" And then they're like, "Oh, Clinton's gonna take it. Clinton's gonna take it." I'm like, "This is not gonna turn out the way anyone wants it to. It is going to be the shittiest of shit shows."
Well,
moment one.
My Facebook news feed, whatever, my wall was covered up to the election with people bitching about Hillary Clinton. And then after the election, I waited a couple weeks to let the dust settle because I was surprised. I was like, I was sitting at work, working the graveyard shift, and we had a TV on with, the news coming in, and just, would glance up every now and then while I was cleaning and whatnot. And it's like, oh, he's leading. And then later on, I was like, he's leading big. Okay. And then finally they called it like 2 o'clock in the morning my time. And I was like, holy shit, he did it. It's
Yeah.
like, wow.
I was watching it at work as well. Yeah, and I wanted Trump to win, not because I liked him, but because I didn't like Hillary. And I always liked the underdog. And
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, he's getting all of the states. Is there anything that Hillary can actually win here? It is amazing just to watch the map turn bright red.
But I went ahead and waited another couple weeks after that before I got back on Facebook, because I was like, okay, everyone's going to be screaming their head off, either happy that Trump won or pissed. So I'm just going to let the dust settle, and then I'll come back and see what's what.
Did you see the Young Turks coverage of the election?
That was hysterical.
I've seen clips of it where they just, that and that video Sargon got sued for, where Aquila was, just slowly descending into depression. But no, I come back to Facebook, and the first thing I see is, that high school ex-girlfriend who talked me into Facebook in the first place, bitching about Trump.
Yeah.
And she goes on like this, like almost like a dissertation level post, talking about how if conservatives really want to have unity and to reach across the aisle, they need to disavow their presidential candidates, anti-black, anti-woman, anti-LGBTQIA. And I'm sitting there like, at that time, I didn't know anything past the T, so I had to stop reading what she posted and look it up.
Yeah, oh boy.
And I was looking around at all the people that I knew, and I was asking, I was like, did you know the gays got more letters? And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, there's like 6 new letters in the gay alphabet. And they're like, nah, dude, what is it? I was like, but anti-LGBTQIA XYLMNOP, and
except they might take out the B because there's more than just 2 genders. You can't be bi anymore.
Anti-Latinx. That's the one that pissed me off. That's the one that got me quote unquote triggered.
I have. Oh my gosh, if I can find it.
The reason why it got me pissed off was because this bitch spent 3 years in high school studying Spanish with me. Now, I'm nowhere near fluent. You use it or you lose it. Well, I fucking lost it. But I still remember that everything in Spanish is gendered.
Yes.
Tables, chairs, men, women, it doesn't matter. Everything has a gender. She knew that as well. And yet she still posted Latinx. Because every time I hear Latinx, I think it's like an off-brand Mexican Kleenex.
It sounds like a Latin to me.
Like someone with a Spanish accent just asking if you need a tissue. That's what I think of when I hear Latinx.
Or like a kind of cleaner chemical that's not allowed in the U.S. due to FDA regulations.
But yeah, that's when I was like, nope, I'm done with Facebook. The only reason why I still keep it is my best friend passed away last year, and it has all the pictures of like me and him from college onward. A lot of our conversations we had online. So yeah, Zuckerberg has a copy of all of that history, and once we learn how to download my friend into a robot, that's when I'm getting off Facebook.
Sounds like a good plan.
But yeah, because I remember her, originally it's like, talking about Facebook. I'm like, what is a Facebook? And she just gave me one of those looks, and she I swear to God, she said to me, what, do you live under a rock? I was like, apparently. Because this was like 2006. Like, apparently I do, because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about right now, woman. I was like, I've got a MySpace account, and the look of disdain she gave me. It's like that's when I realized, like, yeah, I'm already too old.
Yeah, that's not too far from what happened with me, because it was my girlfriend at the time that got me onto Facebook to begin with, and it's like, okay, so now what do? It was like just used it to basically do all those shitty little games that they had on there, like
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Farmville. Farmville.
well,
For
not
me-
even that.
For me,
It
it
was
was
like-
Texas Hold'em.
There's a whole bunch of really pointless. All you did was wait. The entire game was just you click something and then there's a countdown until you can do something else. And then
Oh,
you click
yeah,
on something.
The real-time, real-time strategy games or whatever, where you build up a base and
Not even that interesting.
Oh.
It was just like you're building a robot. So click this button to build the foot. Click the button. Okay, come back in 4 hours. The foot will be ready. Now build its other foot. Click. Come back in 4 hours. The other foot will be ready. Like this isn't a game. This is just progress request with a few more buttons to push.
Because I remember when I first got started on it, they didn't even really have games. It was all the quizzes. Which superhero
yeah.
are you? Which
Yes.
villain? Which and
Yes.
and then years later, everyone starts realizing oh well, that was just them collecting mining all of our personal data to sell us shit back to us.
Yes.
Which is funny because I never answered those correctly.
The ultimate shit posting.
Well, everyone I knew, they would take it multiple times because they didn't get the right answers that they wanted.
I am
Aw, come
yeah,
on.
I'm gonna get the one that I want to get. So let's just see how they're gonna do this.
Yeah, because when it came out, because a lot of my friends are comic book nerds, and I enjoy the movies. I never actually sat down and read comics legit, but they'd have which DC supervillain are you? And everyone wanted to be the Joker, so they'd take that test 6 different times until they got finally oh, I'm the Joker, and they post that one.
Yes.
It was like it was like the Instagram models taking 700 selfies before they got just the right one to post.
Mm-hmm.
And they discard the 699 where they look like shit. That was all my friends with those quizzes back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty silly. I remember there was a supposed IQ test, and what it did was the questions would start repeating after a while, and what it didn't actually care the questions. The real IQ test was how soon do you realize this is pointless and give up? And once you close out of the window, it sends you an email saying you did 10 pages of this quiz, which means your IQ is 102 or whatever.
Yeah, I never trusted an IQ test from a social media website because I was expecting them to tell everyone that they were a super genius.
Yes, I would imagine so.
I mean, who's going to build a platform and then have these tests on there where they just go ahead and tell you, yeah, you're just as retarded as you thought you were.
Well, the thing is, everyone thinks that they're smart. Whether it's true or not, everyone thinks of themselves as fairly intelligent. So, yeah, if you do an IQ test and it comes back with, yeah, you're pretty smart, they're going to go, I knew it.
See, I've actually never had that outlook. I guess maybe it was because I had people growing up saying that I was smart, that it inoculated me from ever having that notion. Because I would just look around and be like, oh man, you're really smart. It's like, no, I just know how stupid I am.
Right.
It's like,
Self-awareness.
I just realized, that I realize I'm an idiot. And, looking at you thinking I'm smart, that says a lot more about you than it does me, pal.
Well, it's the George Carlin thing where you think how stupid the average person is and then realize that half of them are even dumber than that.
Oh, that reminds me, because Carlin is the gold standard of stand up, right?
Yeah.
Just about everyone either does a toss up, either they put either him number 1 or Pryor number 1.
That's fair.
Either him, Pryor, or what's his name? Bill Hicks.
Oh yeah, he's good too.
Bill Hicks was more of the comedian's comedian. You'll hear more comedians talking about Hicks in a positive light than you will the average person. Which is actually that's where I came up with the name and avatar. Well, not the avatar, but the name anyway was a reference to Hicks. And I remember the first time I heard Hicks, I was in high school. And, so this was easily 10, 12 years after he died.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who I was listening to at the time. Like, a buddy just put this CD on, and I'm listening to one of his specials. And, just listening to it, you couldn't see any of his, expressions or movement or anything like that. But you would hear him, like talking to himself like he was somebody else responding to what he said. And because I guess he had that, kind of Texas accent, at first I mistook him for Bill Engvall.
Okay.
Which, Terry, you know who Bill Engvall is, right?
It's one of those
blue-collar comedy guys. Here's Your Sign.
The name is very familiar. If I looked him up, I'm sure I'd recognize him.
That was his big bit of, he would give a sign that says "I'm stupid" to stupid people. He would, somebody would ask him a stupid question. He'd, make a sarcastic remark, be like, "Here's your sign."
Okay, I've just looked him up, and yes, I do know who you're talking about now. I recognize him.
So, I mean, just based off like the cadence of the voice, the accent. At first, I mistook Bill Hicks for Bill Engvall.
Well, you were half right. You got the first name right.
Yeah. And I was like, man, Bill Engvall really grew some balls lately. He's gone really dark. And they got to this one part where he was talking about the Iraq War, and that's when I thought. That's why part of the reason why I thought it was like a modern day special, because the jokes for his Iraq War, 91, they still held up for Iraq 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
Like what he said, can we stop calling it a war? A war is when two armies fight. And like it was at the height of the insurgency when I listened to this. I was like, holy shit, yeah. And I was like, hey man, where can I find some more of this dude? He's like, oh well, I got his other specials on CD as well. I was like, well, is he coming out with anything new anytime soon? He's like, nah, dude, he died in like 1994. Like, what?
Well, the good news is you can just watch Dennis Leary, and it's the same.
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, what's that joke? Why is Dennis Leary famous and Bill Hicks is virtually unknown? Because there's no cure for cancer.
That's a good one. I do like that joke.
Well,
Yeah,
that's like Louis C.K.'s. He wrote that whole song "I'm an Asshole" that Dennis Leary has.
oh yeah.
Louis
It's
CK.
all the Louis C.K. sketch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a few people have ripped off Louis. Like he had one where like he said Dane Cook ripped off one of his bits about like naming children. Naming kids like Optimus Prime and stuff like that. And like another one that was like talking about having an itchy asshole.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm not going to sue him over an intellectual property called itchy asshole. I'm not going to waste the time or the money. He can have it.
And even he is like, yeah. By that time, I was already sick of the joke.
Was
Well, I mean, I just think it's funny that you have all these comedians who had their careers wrecked just from the allegation of being joke thieves. Think of Carlos Mencia, Dane Cook,
and then you've got Amy Schumer,
and she's still going.
Well, Amy Schumer ruined her own career. To be fair, she's not funny.
No, she's not.
You got one job.
There's one thing of Amy Schumer's that I actually liked and that made me really laugh. And that wasn't even, you couldn't even attribute that solely to her. That was from her writing staff for her show. They had that one episode of Inside Amy Schumer called 12 Angry Men Inside Amy Schumer.
Oh god.
Where they did like
a porno title.
They did the whole parody of the movie 12 Angry Men, but they had like Dennis Quaid and a whole bunch of other like big time actors playing out like the judge and the jury deliberating on whether or not Amy Schumer was hot.
Wow.
Whether or not she was sexually attractive.
Was it a unanimous verdict that she was not?
To be honest with you now, I can't even remember I think they just barely squeaked it out that she was sexually attractive.
Okay, so she had way too much control over the script then.
Well, it was supposed to follow the premise of 12 Angry Men, where they're all dead set that the guy's guilty, except for the one holdout who slowly convinces them all that no, he's not guilty. So like they had one guy, like they had Nick DiPaolo and a whole bunch of other like really really funny people. Like they had that one young dude from Mad Men. I can't remember what his name is, but I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. They had all these funny actors and comedians playing these parts, and that's what made it funny. Like Amy Schumer hardly showed up in that episode.
See, that's good Amy Schumer. When she's not in it, then
it's hilarious. Yeah.
Amy Schumer at her best.
So when it's of her but not with her, then
when it's people making fun of Amy Schumer, it's fucking gold.
Yes.
Well, and then you get to you mentioned Mencia, like he straight up admitted that he would steal jokes.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what I thought was funny was like because you got those clips floating around on YouTube of like him and Joe Rogan nose to nose on a comedy stage, yelling back and forth at each other. And I was like, all it would have taken is Mencia, just making the wrong move, and he would have been a dead man. Joe Rogan could have choked the life out of that pudgy Honduran.
Oh, God, yeah. Did any of you see the Dennis Leary versus Greg Giraldo on Tough Crowd?
Yes, I love that. I love Giraldo for that.
Yeah,
He
knocked Leary down like 3-4 pegs.
He knocked everyone down.
Thing of beauty, absolutely beautiful to watch.
No one was safe. No one was safe. Greg Giraldo.
I was heartbroken when I heard that he OD'd. Because I mean his stuff for the roasts were like a highlight of a lot of those roasts.
Did you watch?
One of the best, sure.
His stand up was excellent too. Like I mean, did
you see the tribute video they had for him?
No, I don't remember seeing that.
I think I did.
It was it's called "Give It Up for Greg Giraldo."
Okay.
I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, like it had like Nick Swartzen on there and other stand-ups, and they're talking, and all of a sudden he's all talking about this great story about him, and then just all of a sudden just Nick Swartzen just starts bawling, and I'm like, I can't watch this.
Right. Yeah.
Like if Nick Swartzen is bawling, I don't know if I can like this.
But like hearing about his death and Mitch Hedberg's death, those both were those both hurt real bad. Like with Hicks, it's like I never got a chance to hear about him when he was alive, so finding out he was dead after I found him was like, oh well, that sucks. But like I grew up listening to Hedberg and Giraldo, so. Like hearing about him, hearing about both of them dying from overdose was just terrible, because they would have so many people, like trying to rip off Mitch Hedberg, like the not even necessarily like his jokes, but just his demeanor.
Yeah.
And I used to love doing. I used to work at a outbound call center, shilling those Discover credit cards. So, to amuse myself, I would do a Mitch Hedberg impression while I was trying to get people to sign up for a credit card. And the guy in the cubicle next to me, he was a huge Mitch Hedberg fan. They finally made me had to quit doing it because he was laughing too much. Because we had a whole script that we had to read. And so I'm just, the whole time, just straight faced, just doing the voice. Going through this script, hi, my name's Corey. I'm calling on behalf of Discover Card. Just want to let you know that you're eligible to apply for a, no limit platinum card or whatever. And he's cracking up the whole time, and he could never hit the mute button on his headset fast enough So his customer and everything was recorded for quality control.
Yes.
You know, to make sure we weren't fucking off while we were supposed to be
Working.
Yeah, and
Right,
so
not
like
ordering pizzas or something else.
so like he would be he'd be laughing on his recordings and like why is this guy laughing? What's going on here? And so finally, I used to do a whole I would get bored sitting there like 8 hours a day because you'd start I'm on Central Time, so I would start calling the East Coast and then work my way all the way to Hawaii at the end of the night. So no matter who I was calling, I was interrupting their dinner.
On purpose?
Yeah. So anytime they try and tell you that they just no, they meant to do that. They figured you're off work and it's just about time you're getting ready to sit down and eat.
Well, it makes sense. You want to catch people when they're home.
But yeah, so like eventually they got tired of me making this other dude laugh next to me doing Hedberg. So like you gotta cut that out. I was like, okay, well I'll stop doing Hedberg. All right, fine. Then I started doing Bill Clinton, and that made it even worse. The best part was I called this one dude up, and I don't even remember where he was in the country, but it had to be a place that had legal weed. Because I swear I heard a bong rip in the background.
You're probably good.
And so I'm doing the Bill Clinton voice, and this guy is so spaced out. He thinks it's actually Bill Clinton trying to get him to sign up for Discover Card. Trying to tell me about how he voted for me back in '96 and whatnot. It's like, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
See, I've always worked in customer service jobs where like the high people or the drunk people called me because they needed food.
Well, that job,
like, you're
that
so
job didn't
chill,
last
man.
long.
You're gonna send us food so we don't have to go out. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to drive. Stay home.
That job did not last too long for me because I found out that the only people that if you got a man answering the phone, 99 times out of 100, he was going to say no and hang up on you. There's like, nah, I don't need it. Thanks. Click. And that was if you were lucky. It was always like housewives and elderly people that would go ahead and say yes and give you all the information and sign up because they had no one to talk to. And all it took was you sitting on the phone with them for 20, 30 minutes and you had a sale. And it just got soul crushing. I was like, no, I can't do this. The pay was okay. You had like a base salary, hourly rate, and then you got commission on top of that. But I was like, nah, I'd rather flip burgers. It's a more honest living.
I mean, I can attest to that. I mean, I don't even answer my phone. Like, if it rings, I just ignore it until it stops. Because there's no one who is calling me that isn't trying to sell me something. So just...
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have all the phone numbers of anybody that would actually call me, which is a very short list.
Yes.
They're already programmed into my phone. I know who's calling me as soon as they do. And if it's not one of those numbers, I either ignore it, or if I'm feeling frisky, I'll answer it just to fuck with them.
When we first got digital cable here, we were like, it was like the next day, like right after we got it installed, got a phone call from the satellite dish people who were like, oh yeah, we're gonna try and sell this guy this stuff because we got this other thing. And it's this really nice, calm, quasi-English guy. And he's all like, oh, yes, we just really like to purchase this, and you can have a DVR, and it'll be a thing. And I'm like, there's no way in hell that this guy's British. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do anything. And then all of a sudden he just goes, well, then you don't do it, and I need you to purchase this. And I'm just like, I knew you weren't. Click.
Oh no, like I like if I do feel like answering one of those unknown numbers, I like doing what I learned from the Joe Rogan podcast, which he had his buddy Eddie Bravo talking to him. And he said, whenever he would get telemarketers call him, he would see how long he could keep them on the phone just to see how committed they were to making this sale. And then eventually, when he got tired of it, then he'd go ahead and he'd cut them loose and hang up on them. I think my record so far is I managed to keep a guy on the phone for like 30, 45 minutes before I got bored.
Weren't there a pair of comedians who did that, like brothers or best friends, and they would just pull shenanigans to see who would stay on the phone for how long? Like,
I don't know. Like here in Oklahoma, we had a couple of guys on a local rock station doing a Roy D. Mercer. That was the name of the character they came up with, and they would call people, just kind of prank call them, and see how long they could stretch it out. But eventually, it got so famous that they had to start calling people from out of state. Because everyone, once he said, yeah, this is Roy D. Mercer, they're like, oh shit, I'm on the radio, cool. Yeah, so they had to start calling people like on the West Coast and up north and everything, who weren't anywhere near, which I mean, now that radio station, you can listen to them on iHeartRadio. So I mean, it probably wouldn't even work today. But like they had like a cassette tapes full of these, calls they would make, where it's just them selling cassette tapes of prank calls.
Well, that's the problem with that kind of sort of comedy, where once you get famous, you can't do it anymore. There's a kind of built-in time limit on how long you can keep it up, because once people know who you are, they're not going to take the bait anymore. They're going to, like you said, oh, I'm on the radio. They're going to know that it's a setup.
Yeah, just like the Impractical Jokers, they couldn't keep it up.
Well, I mean that's why that new show Sacha Baron Cohen's doing, he's got to be all in makeup now because everyone recognizes him.
Yeah, and he still got recognized by some guy who owns a gun shop.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's even still there are people that still recognize him, even full on Hollywood makeup. So
yeah.
I could never imagine trying to do that kind of comedy, just because, let's face it, there are plenty of people willing to punch you in the face for trying to make a joke out of them.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I like my face the way it is.
Unpunched.
Exactly. I've been punched in the face before. It's not a very good experience. I'd rather not relive it.
I would agree with that. I got punched in the face by someone who said, have you got any money? I said no. He said, fucking spazwog, and then he punched me in the face and left.
Oh, well,
so
I remember traveling through Alabama on the way to Florida for spring break one year. And we stopped in, I can't remember if it was Montgomery. I want to say it was Montgomery, Alabama. Like 2:30, 3 in the morning, our bus pulls into this gas station. And I realized immediately we were in a bad part of town, because as soon as we walked in, like the where the cash register was, they had the bulletproof plexiglass around that area, and it's like, oh yeah, we're and it's a bunch of Oklahoma white people I was with, and all of a sudden like these two black crackheads walk up, while I'm sitting outside getting a smoke. Because you can't smoke on buses these days. And one of them just walks up and he's like, hey, man, can I hold $1? I'm like, hold a dollar? You want to hold $1?
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It was like that episode of the Boondocks. He's like, how are you going to borrow a French fry? What, you going to give it back?
I don't want you to give it back.
Someone said, can I borrow a tissue? It's like, what, are you going to give it back? It's like, ugh.
But yeah, so I'm just sitting there, and because this whole trip, I couldn't get stretched out. I couldn't, relax, get comfortable, because the bus was packed with people. And I'm a fairly tall dude, and this was a confined space. So I'm, stretching, I'm walking around, getting the circulation flowing, getting me a cigarette before I got to get back on this bus. And, these dudes just walk, hey, man, can I hold $1? Like, man, I tell you what, you want $1? Go wash that bus real fast. Like, I don't do charity, man. You got to work for it. And luckily for me, like, I'd only brought enough money with me from the bus to get me like a pack of smokes and something to drink. Because that's when I got punched square in the face. Like, you know, like they did like the one kind of was sitting there getting my attention, and the other one was kind of circling around. And when I kind of, you know, caught him moving out of my periphery and looked, that's when it, bam, right in the nose. I was like, yep, should have saw that one coming.
Mm.
I was like, congratulations, dude. You just committed assault for like 50 cents. Here, go ahead, take it.
At least they did earn it, like you wanted them to.
Exactly, yeah.
They
and
did
then
something.
Yeah, they did something, but like you know, one of the girls from the, you know, coming out of the store, you know, she saw it happen and they run off. And she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Do you want me to call the cops?" I was like, "Call the cops. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Those guys made off with like 45 cents. It's like, this is not the first time my nose has been broken. I'll live. Let's just get the fuck out of here." You know?
Fair
It's
enough.
like, I don't want to stick around here. You know, like, I'm not going to have everyone on that bus pissed off on me, wanting to punch me in the face because I made them late for their, you know, spring break.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just get on the bus, hurry up, get to Florida, and get drunk like we planned.
Hard to argue with that plan.
That's a winning plan right there.
I mean, because let's face it, at that point in time, alcohol would have solved a lot of problems.
They probably wouldn't have punched you. That's probably what they wanted.
Well, at the very least, it would take my mind off the fact that I had a broken nose.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you know, I learned fairly young that nobody likes a smartass, and I am afflicted.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, the world's full of ableists, aren't they?
That's very true.
Oh, that reminds me about the special that we watched. She's talking about mental illness.
Yeah, we started off on the net, huh?
Yeah, we did. But no, it was she claimed that misogyny is a mental illness. So we've all got an excuse, guys.
Yeah.
Anybody bitches at you about it, just call them an ableist and walk away.
Yes.
Right? There you go. You can't help the way you're born.
Yeah, I had not to switch topics. I met a gal that I worked with who was very against interracial dating, who would also post stuff that was pro-gay marriage. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, because if you can't help who you love, then what's the problem with interracial dating?
That's a very good point.
How did she...
That's where the horseshoe theory comes into play. You can be such an extremist, you loop right back around to sounding just like the other side of the asshole spectrum. like the Tariq Nasheeds, who are against interracial dating. And they say it's for different reasons than the other side, but they have the same goal.
Well, yeah, I mean, the SJWs and the alt-right both want racial segregation, just for different reasons.
Yeah, but same outcome.
See, like, my best friend, growing up, he was black. I'm mixed race. You know, I'm white and Native American, indigenous, whatever the fuck they call it these days.
Are you openly biracial, like Irate Bear?
Yes, in fact, I am. I'm openly biracial. I'm a card-carrying Indian, which if you live in America and you claim Native heritage and you don't have a card, I don't buy it.
Fair enough.
I don't carry a card, but I can call the place and be like, "Can you give me my number?"
Well, so yeah, I mean, you've got a number, but like, I used to work for my tribe at one point, and they don't just do casinos. they have other, they have one company where they build stuff for the defense department. Like water tanks and stuff like that, mobile water tanks and other kinds of stuff. But they also have travel plazas, like highway convenience stores.
Yeah. And
at these travel plazas, if you have a tribal membership card, you don't have to pay like the sales tax, on everything but alcohol. Because let's face it, nobody needs to incentivize Indians to drink more. We handle that just fine already.
Well, that's like that guy who was wearing the Caucasian shirt.
Oh yes, that.
Oh, yeah.
I think I commented on Jack's post about it. I was like, has this dude never heard of the Minnesota Vikings?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and that's like I posted. I'm like, if this guy thinks that being called a Redskin is the worst thing that could happen to these guys, then he needs to go to a reservation.
Right. Well, see, like I told Jack as well. I was like, and I used the abbreviation that a lot of the folks around here use for Indians, so that way you don't confuse us with actual people from India. It's just NDN, like it sounds. So I said, I'm an Indian, and the name does not offend me. What offends me is the fact that team has sucked my entire life. They haven't won a Super Bowl since before I was born. And I live in Oklahoma, so we have the Dallas Cowboys fans all around us.
That's a legitimate claim to offense, though.
Yeah, the team sucks. That's why I'm offended. The Cleveland Indians, they almost won me over, but then they lost the World Series. So, but yeah, if that guy thought that, and I call bullshit on that guy's story. I don't think anybody walked up to him getting offended he was wearing a shirt that said Caucasians.
Right. I thought it was a joke. I actually chuckled for the longest time, and then I saw people were serious, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, if I saw that dude walking down the street, I'd have laughed.
Right, I'd be like, no, I would legit compliment him. I'm like, where did you get that shirt? I want it.
Exactly. Hey, man, where can I get one of those? But no.
And what's worse is like the way that I can see maybe one or two people saying that. So, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, there's snowflakes on every side.
Person they walk past was like, oh, I'm offended.
But
no.
Like I said, what offends me more is when people claim to be an Indian and they have no proof. Because I mean, like I said, I spend most of my time indoors. But if I go outside for even a couple hours, I change 2-3 shades of color. If I have a construction gig or something that I'm working, I go from lily white to dark and crispy in the course of 2-3 days. So
you can't.
Who was that one senator that claimed to be
Elizabeth
American?
Warren.
Yeah,
actually,
I was about to say, I'm 164th Native American, but I've never claimed to be Native American. I'm like, okay, at most I have thick hair. Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
She's originally from Oklahoma before she went off to Harvard to be a professor and everything. But so she should know better. She should definitely know better.
But you have my cheekbones, but more proof do you need?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I get offended by it. If I'm going to use that word, is because I have to fill out all this paperwork for every job I do because I'm an Indian, and they want that tax credit. I have to show them my cards and this and that because it actually does help you get a job. Until they see until you walk through the door for the interview, and they're like, wait a second, no, I've got documentation, dude. I'm an indoor cat. This is a moon tan you're seeing right now.
It's like I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a college professor. You can see where that's going.
Oh boy.
I'm like, and I was telling him I'm like, we were talking about the use of the N-word, and I had mentioned that using it is not a problem. It's how you use it that's the problem.
Right.
I had
Like,
that discussion with Gutenberg on Minions. 'Cause
Context
he's
is
saying
key.
that it's okay for me to say it because my voice is such that no one could take it seriously. I'm like, no. The reason that I can say it is because I used it in the context of a joke, and I wasn't actually using it as a slur against anyone.
well, like I said, my best friend was a black dude, and I'm openly biracial, so our favorite things involved race. Our favorite movie, both of us, was Blazing Saddles.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie. You couldn't make it again today, even if
God,
that movie won an Oscar back in the 70s.
I thought about actually sending Scribe a super chat to advertise this stream, and I was going to put one of these three statements is true, and then I don't remember what the first statement was, and then the second statement was there's going to be the stream tonight, and the third is Blazing Saddles was overrated.
Well, the thing is that when I was actually, going to college, I was a little bit darker than I am now because my friend would drag me around everywhere with him in the daylight. Because he was the kind of person, he could be up all hours of the day and night and just be on. Me, I'm a night person. He had to drag me out in the sun like a vampire. So, one of our favorite things to do was because I'm more of a keep to myself kind of dude. I didn't know as many people as he did. He was that gregarious type. He could make friends with anybody about anything. And so he'd be talking to somebody that he knew I didn't know, and he would give me like the signal. And as he'd see me walking by, he'd be like, "Hello, sir. Good morning, sir. And isn't it a glorious morning?" And I would just look at him, just stone face, be like, "Up yours, nigger," and just keep walking. And we would both look back to the person he had been talking to originally to gauge their reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, it was so hard not to bust up laughing right then and there because their jaw would be on the floor and their eyes would be big as saucer plates, which told me right then and there, there's not a whole lot of racism, at least not around where we lived, because they were all shocked to hear somebody talk like that.
Yeah.
And
like,
then
I mean, where I live, the only people I see who are confident in using racial slurs are people who are more tan than myself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see any white person, but I have seen a Mexican go off on a black individual and use every name under the sun.
That's a Chris Rock joke, actually. He says, for every black guy who thinks they're tough, there's a Native American waiting to kick his ass. There's always somebody more marginalized than you if you want to go, that route.
I'm like, so where in the SJW Olympics can a Hispanic gentleman yell at a white woman with a black husband and interracial kids and use those kind of slurs? Like, who's on top in that situation? There's a white woman, she's a woman, but she's white. And you have an Hispanic person, but they're also calling out the white person and their black spouse.
Well, we have to remember that black men are the white people of black people, so...
Oh, I hate the root. Oh, my God. God damn it.
How can you hate the root? The root is the best thing that I've ever found. It is hilarious.
I think I the comment on one of Scribe's videos talking about the root, and I paraphrased Muhammad Ali, how was it identity politics is poisonous from the root to the fruit. But
rotten
but no.
from the ground up.
How can you take the website that gave us 10 top black Star Wars characters?
And one of them,
like how saving a rabbit from a fire is peak whiteism.
Yes.
But aside from quoting Blazing Saddles, because that was another thing. Like whenever we would make our entrance to like a house party or a classroom or something, I would walk in first, kind of stand in the door and be like, "Oh, boys, look what I got here." and my friend would poke his head around the corner and be like, "Where are all the white women at?" And
when I usually before I moved from my trailer to my apartment, I would take various movie quotes and I would record them and turn them into ringtones.
oh yeah,
because it came across really well on my phone, and one of them was Cleveland Little. Where the white women at? And I was walking through Walmart, and there was an older interracial couple in front of me, and my friend texted me, and it shot out, and he stops and then turns to me, and I'm like, uh-oh. And he goes, "That's the greatest thing I've ever heard." And then he asked me if I bought it, and I'm like, "No, I made it." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to give you my number, and you're going to send that to me."
No, the other thing that we really enjoyed was that show, The Boondocks. If you guys ever saw that.
I think I saw a couple of episodes.
But they have this one character, it's like a cartoon. It's based on a comic strip, and it's a black family moving to the suburbs. So they're all around just white people. And like the first episode, they get introduced to this character named Uncle Ruckus, who is also like another black character, but he is he's racist against black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had this one quote talking about how how Michael Jackson got that vitiligo. I got that re-vitiligo. Every year I just get blacker and darker and blacker and more darker. And so like that was the quote that I would always use because like I said, he would drag me around everywhere. He would force me out of my dorm room and later on out of my house when he would come and visit. It's like, "Hey man, we're gonna go do this." Like, I really don't want to go do it. Well, we're doing this, so come on, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And one day when we were in college, they decided they're gonna have like a volleyball tournament out in the quad. And so I'm sitting there all day out in the sun, like in the middle of April or something like that, spring semester. And we got to play volleyball, and then we got to wait for our next match and whatnot. And so eventually it got hot enough to where like I took my shirt off, and I'm not saying I'm sexy or nothing, but I got a lot of looks just because the skin that had been exposed to the sun up to that point was literally 3 shades darker on the Home Depot paint swatches than what hadn't been. They're like, "Wow, you tan really good." It's like, yeah, I told you I'm not completely white.
I call it summer native, winter Irish.
Yeah, and in my case though, it'd be a German. So people would ask me, it's like, what's your ethnic makeup? It's like, well, alcoholism. That's what it is, really.
Well, that's racism.
Because back then everyone would be like, "Oh well, I'm part Polish. I'm part." It's like, I'm German, Irish, and Indian, so I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. And then you get invited to a house party, and I'd prove it. But no, those were the days. Just you could make fun of anybody as far back as what 2000. Well, yeah, pretty much before Obama got elected, and then it was kind of touchy. I remember in high school, I had a black friend who begged me to tell him black jokes.
Oh, that's so sad.
He had never heard any. He knew they were out there, but he'd never heard any. And he wanted me to tell him. He begged me. And I was like, "Man, I don't know about this, He's like, "Come on, man. You know some jokes, right?" I was like, I admit, I know some jokes, but I don't know if I want to tell them to you, dude. He's like, "Why not, man? Come on. I want to hear these jokes. I want to laugh." It's like, all right, man, but I'm gonna need you to sign this release first, okay? You know, like in triplicate, notarized. I'm not catching an ass beating because you wanted to hear some jokes.
Well, I came up with one offhand. It was if someone if a black man who goes against the black thought is an Uncle Tom, is a Native American who goes against the reservation an Uncle Tom Tom.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good. See, like I got indoctrinated pretty early on because my dad, he's told me Indian jokes as far back as I can remember. You know, so like, what's the difference between John Wayne and Johnny Walker? Johnny Walker's still killing Indians.
Ah.
Now, have you seen Smoke Signals?
Oh, I think so. That's the one with like the two Indian guys going off to look for like their dad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, this would have been.
That's Adam Beach.
Yeah, Adam Beach, and I can't remember the other guy.
I can't remember.
But it's been probably 20 years since I've seen that though. I'd have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah,
I just remember the other guy wearing like the Superman T-shirt and some redneck dude calling him Super Engine. That's the only thing I remember from that movie.
Yeah, and there's like it carries a lot of stereotypes with it too, and they're all obsessed with fry bread.
Hey man, don't knock fry bread. I love that shit.
Oh, I love fry bread.
You put some honey on that and some butter. There's a reason why we have diabetes.
You say diabetes.
It's because I grew up with the Wilford Brimley commercials. It's seared in the back of my brain. You know, or Sugar Beaties. That's another good one. But no. Well, I mean, it seems like every movie that has an Indian character, they always throw in the stereotypes. It's like, you know, yeah, we get it, but there's 200,000 plus people in my tribe, and we have brown Indians, we have ginger Indians, we have black Indian. I mean, there's more diversity in our tribe than we get credit for.
But do you all cry when you see garbage?
Just a single tear.
That's all I ask.
The way God intended. But no, I mean that dude in that commercial wasn't even Indian. That dude was an Italian guy.
Yeah,
he was an Italian American actor. So
even funnier.
It is. Because like I give my girlfriend shit about it because she's an Italian American. It's like man, you guys stole our commercial. Like the one GIF on Twitter that has an Indian is that dude crying the single tear, and it's not even an Indian. But like I've heard so many different rain jokes throughout my life, and usually it's somebody bitching that I was dancing, so that's why it started raining. No, like I'm half white too. We don't dance,
When I was a kid, people used to I used to get all the Native American jokes, but I had one where they're like, oh yeah, well if you're a Native American, you can do a rain dance and you make it rain. I'm just like, no, the last time I did that, we had a drought for 7 days.
Well, see, I always tell people like, hey man, like we could use some rain. Why don't you go ahead and do a dance real fast? It's like, you do realize I'm part of the 5 civilized tribes, right? You white people beat the dancing out of us years ago.
But
that shuts them up real quick.
When I lived in New Mexico, I unironically had people give me some dowsing rods and be like, "Hey, you can find some water sources for us." And I'm like, I have rods in my hand. I'll walk around. No, and these were people who had construction. They had construction companies. They're like, "Hey, Gabby, walk around the yard for a bit with these freaking metal rods in your hand. I'm like, I feel like a dumbass.
But
I feel and I look like a dumbass.
But did you find water?
I did.
oh, see, perpetuating the stereotypes.
God damn it.
Well, no, see, like working at the travel plaza for the tribe, that was hilarious in and of itself because you would get people coming in, and you know, if they were a tribal member, they knew about the discounts.
There it is.
Yep.
That's here.
Oh, wait, we've got a couple more in there now. Because like when I was looking last time, it was just a couple of gifts of the one dude.
Yeah, this one they went down here. I think since they was it you that posted it on Twitter that about that gal? She's native, the Native American lesbian gal.
Me? No. So I think somebody else posted about that. She won her primary or whatever.
And it's like yeah, and she even has a name.
Yeah. Because that's all the post said was like, this openly gay woman will be the first Native American in Congress or whatever. It's like yeah, but does she have a name?
Although and
then a few other people they retweeted that as well, and they're like, so wait, Elizabeth Warren isn't an Indian?
That's a good point.
But no, working at the travel plaza, you'd have people come in. It's like, hey man, let me get my discount. It's like, all right, well, let me see your card, because yes, I am Indian. I'm a tribal member, but I'm also German, and we fucking stick to the rules. So
those are there for a reason.
Yeah. But so they get mad at me for asking to see their card, and every single one of them verbatim is like, what, do I look Mexican or something to you? And it's like, well, you do realize Mexicans are just Indians that speak Spanish, right? Think about it. You'll get there. Now show me the card. Or because I worked the graveyard shift, I had my moon tan rocking, and I'd look at me like, well, do I look Indian to you? And they'd either be like, well, yeah, trying to get that discount. I'm like, well, then, even I show my card, and I fucking work here, man. Come on. Or they're like, no, you don't. Like, well, guess what? I am, dude. So you see why we're asking?
See, that's what happens when you judge people at skin level. Like, it's so annoying.
Yeah, like the one real instance of actual racism that I ever experienced was a buddy of mine from college. He only ever interacted with me, and then one day he shows up at my house to pick me up to go do something, and my mom and my little sister walked out of the house, and they are dark year round. My mom she's half. I'm a quarter. Well, my sister, we have different dads. So her dad, he's also part native. So, I mean, she's got the tan regardless. And he sees them and he looks at me, he's like, who's that? I was like, that's my mom and my sister. He's like, so what's the story there? I was like, well, my mom's brown, my dad's white. He couldn't wrap his head around it there for a second.
Well, you're making things very complicated with multiple colors and everything, so... True.
But that was always funny to me. People would come into that store, and then I had they had that protest at the oil pipeline a couple years ago. And I'm sitting there at the travel plaza, and we have folks coming through pretty early in the morning. Like, business slows down from about midnight until about 4 in the morning. You'll have a few people coming in to buy booze before the cutoff. And then after that, it really just slows down to where there's hardly anybody in there. And then it picks up again about 4 o'clock in the morning when people start getting up, going to work. I had this one white lady and her black boyfriend come in. and she was talking to us about the protests, of the pipeline, and how she stands with the Indians and this and that. And I was like, well, I don't really follow that. She's like, oh, you should. Tell me about how all the Indians. We stand with the Indians. And I just kind of looked. I was like, you do realize we're a different tribe, right? We're not all one people. They got their shit, we got ours, and that blew her mind.
Right, because there was tribes in different sections of what is now today, like
There's
America, like
thousands upon thousands of tribes.
Yeah, I mean, she just she was surprised that I wasn't paying attention to it because I was Indian. I was like, yeah, not my tribe, not my problem. Like I got other shit that I'm concerned with. When they start building shit on my tribe's land, then maybe my ears will perk up. But I mean, this is not even in the same state. It's halfway across the country, man. I can't keep track of everything. I got my own problems. I got meth heads coming in here at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to change out quarters so they can go to play slots at the casino. Like that's a bigger concern to me right now than somebody else somewhere else.
I can sympathize with the I don't care about other people mentality. I am a keen embracer of said mentality.
Say what now?
I agree with you that other people aren't worth worrying about, basically.
Well, I mean, why am I going to ruffle my feathers, pardon the pun, over somebody else's situation?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Well, I was talking to
like there are different states with different goals. I'd imagine it might be the same thing with different tribes. Like that's a different state, a different issue.
I mean, even with my tribe, it's split in two different localities. You have the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and then you have the Mississippi Band of Choctaw. They have two different, sets of circumstances and issues to deal with. So, what may be a problem for us here in Oklahoma, they could care less in Mississippi, and we're genetically related. So.
I was talking to a friend of mine about, I was talking about because he was one of those you can't be racist against white people types.
Oh yeah, and I love those.
I go, well, that's good. It's good that I can be racist because I can't be racist because I'm native. And he goes, "You're too white to be native." I'm like, well, then, if I get out in the sun, I can tan it up.
Yeah.
And then he's going off about he's like, you can't because you didn't have the oppression that these people had, and I'm like, oh, I mean, the black folk had slavery, yeah, we got that, but what happened before that? Oh, that's right. Natives were forced off their land.
Well, like I always counter that one because I'll get that one too. Like I said, I stay out of the sun as much as possible. But because I'll get that. It's like, well, you're too white to be oppressed. It's like, dude, try being the lightest skinned Indian in a fucking Indian school.
Oh Jesus.
Oh yeah. The slang term for a white person in Choctaw is Nahola. I spent 2 years in school thinking that was my fucking name. So, yeah, I was like, you go ahead, tell me that you can't be racist to white people. I told my buddy, I was like, hey man, did you because he wasn't as connected with the social commentary and stuff online as I was. I was like, hey man, did you hear you can't be racist to black people? And he just looked at me without missing a beat. He's like, the fuck you can't. Or the fuck they can't. They can be racist as fuck, dude. He's like, You should listen to the shit black people say about other black people.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, there's this big internal war. And the one thing I hate about the argument, oh, you can't be racist towards white people because it's power plus privilege. I'm like, imagine if you exported all the Klansmen from the US to Africa. Would you argue they're no longer racist because they're now in a location that has no, like, minimal, if negligible, if not non-existent white people in government?
Yeah, drop
And
a
they are no
white
longer
dude
the
off in
majority.
Zimbabwe and tell me how he fares.
Yeah, like, are you gonna really determine someone's value and their actions and their beliefs solely dependent on their geopolitical location at the moment? No, they are who they are.
Well, that's the big flaw with the whole identity politics is that it, you know, your position in the stack all really depends on where you are geographically. Like, look at that
Which
Otto
is
Warmbier,
bullshit.
that Otto Warmbier kid that, you know, got brain damage in North Korea and came back home to die. He didn't have any white privilege saving his ass from the gulag.
And people were still saying it was white privilege.
Yeah.
The kid in Chicago.
Oh yeah, the Facebook kidnapping.
Yeah,
For the life of me, I can't understand how anybody thinks it's a good idea to record a felony and live stream it.
after
I'm not
2 days.
surprised. I'm just disappointed, and I drink.
Well, like when I was in college, I already knew where the wind was blowing because all of my friends, you know, I was going to a junior college, you know, small town junior college out in the sticks. So everyone there was a freshman or sophomore. So it was mostly 18 and 19-year-old kids. There was nobody of legal drinking age. And because it was out in the middle of God's nowhere, all you had to do was go to school, go to class, or get hammered. And you had all these parties that people were going to, you know, just out in the middle of nowhere. Very rarely was it ever held at somebody's house because these were all out-of-town kids. Nobody actually lived in town. They were all in the dorms. And, you know, they'd be sitting there and they'd be snapping photos to post on Facebook and this and that. And they're like, well, why don't you ever want to take a picture with us, man? It's like, because where I'm from, that's considered prosecution's Exhibit A. You know, you are posting evidence that can be used against you for minor in possession, for, you know, possession of drugs. That's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not willing to hang myself.
Yeah, like, this has been like hanging out and like, hey, let's document the criminal defense.
Yeah. I was like, you know, because at that point in time, I'd already been in trouble with the law. So I knew how that would go if there was actual proof, you know. You know, at least this way, you know, I could say, like, well, no, the officer had it wrong, you know, and there's no proof, you know. My friends, all they'd have to do is just log on to Facebook and, oh, well, we've got, you know, a picture of this person chugging a bottle of vodka. We got these people over here playing beer pong. You got a group of them smiling with a big shit-eating grin while they're smoking on a blunt. So, yeah, guilty, guilty, guilty.
Evidence is just racist. That's you can't use evidence anymore. That's just decolonize your evidence. It's just
yeah, body
galore.
cams are racist, even though they show everyone's actions.
Exactly.
That's I love World Star Hip Hop for that reason. Not necessarily body cams, but just, you know, people who will go ahead and document, you know, record all the street fights and whatnot. Like there was one, I think AIU put it in one of his videos showing like two women just start brawling in a Waffle House for no apparent reason. You know, just drunk, just got out of the club, and all of a sudden, you know, just shit breaks loose.
Did you see that one that your boy Pat had?
Oh, which one?
McDonald's.
The McDonald's one? Oh, man. So many people posted that one, and it's just like, well, yeah, you know, because, you know, I think just about everybody has worked fast food at some point or another, you know, unless you're like, you know, really, you know, just wealthy growing up. Like everyone I know has had a turn working at some fast food restaurant.
Yeah, I never did. I skipped that one. I worked in a bar, but not in a fast food place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was really the first job experience that a lot of us around here got, was because, it's one of the few places that a 16-year-old kid could start working.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
but like you have, if you work in one of those places, you have those customer horror stories. And that lady she got to the end of her rope, and I don't blame her one bit, because I had a situation myself working at a Taco Bell when I was in high school. Back then they had the Grande meal, where you could get like 10 soft, crunchy tacos, any combination thereof, bean burritos, and a Mexican pizza. 10 of them. And this guy came through. I was working the drive-through, and he had a diesel engine. He had a dually. So diesel engine is clattering in my ear while he's trying to order. And I asked him if he would go ahead and kill his engine, because I was having trouble hearing him, and I want to make sure I got his order correctly. Well,
Yeah,
he
fair
got pissed at that. He got pissed that I asked him to turn his engine off so I could actually hear him, so he got his food.
You're diesel prejudiced.
Yeah. But well, I'll have to get Peterbilt Confederacy's take on that one to see if I'm prejudiced or not.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Unleaded supremacist.
But so he already got pissed because I asked him to turn his engine off. Then he proceeds to order 4 Grande meals. That's 40 items of food. $40 at Taco Bell. That is a lot of fucking food.
Might have been for a party or something. Or...
Oh no, he was already half in the bag. I could hear him slurring his words.
Oh,
okay.
that explains it.
Yeah,
Taco Bell's pretty expensive now. Like, just getting a 12-pack is like $18 here.
Oh wow, it's about 13, 14 here.
Oh,
But
you lucky bastard.
But he now he had other people in the vehicle with him. It was like an extended cab dually, so he had like 3 or 4 people with him. And I'm guessing they had come from some Thanksgiving family deal, visiting out of town.
Thanksgiving, where you're already filling yourself up.
Well, I figured I'd go ahead and work Thanksgiving and take Christmas off, because who the fuck's going to order fast food after eating turkey and stuffing and pie and this and that? No, apparently that is the holiday of gluttons, because we were slammed the whole day.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And this is later on in the evening, and I'm figuring these people are heading back to Texas, because I caught this dude's license plate when he left. But we had one guy working in the first drive-through window taking the money from the customers and giving them their receipts. And then you had me in the second window giving them their food and their drinks and whatnot and taking the orders for the next customer. Well, this guy orders 4 Grande meals, and then I asked him if he wanted a drink with that. Because, if you don't offer them a drink with their order, if they don't order something to drink and you don't offer them one, they're entitled to like a free medium drink. If they if they pick up on it.
Oh, you should have told me that. I'm going to give someone some shit for that.
I don't work there anymore. I don't give a fuck. But
no, I'm always treated like garbage whenever I go to Taco Bell. Like last time I ordered a 12-pack.
Yeah, if you don't ask for a drink and they don't ask you if you want one, they may have changed the policy since I worked there, because this was a long time ago.
Oh.
But yeah, ask him about that. Ask him about that.
I mean, every time I go there, they're just they're not, I don't know. Like, I got 7 taco packets for a 12-pack of tacos. I'm like, what?
Yeah, you're not dealing with a bunch of mathletes that work there, so you got to count to make sure you get everything you're supposed to get. But
I'm like, I get they've had a rough day, but I work in customer service too. I don't treat every single customer I deal with like an a-hole. I treat the a-holes like a-holes.
Well, so I go ahead and I ask this guy if he would like anything to drink with his order. And he gets pissed. He's like, man, it's a Grande meal. It's a meal. It should come with a drink. I was like, well, I'm sorry, sir. That's just not the way the Grand Meal's set up. And I'm trying to, be as polite as I can.
Yeah,
you know?
you don't make the menu.
Exactly. I don't make the menu. I don't tell you what comes with what. But he was pissed that it didn't come with a meal, and so he drives off from the first window. He comes to the second window. I go start handing him out these 40 fucking tacos, and as I'm handing him the last bag, he grabs a hold of my wrist and tries to pull me out of the window.
No.
Yeah. And luckily for me, he grabbed. I was handing the food out with my left arm, and I'm right-handed, and I'm a fairly tall dude. I'm like 6'2". And so when he tried to pull me out of that window, he was actually pulling me down into his truck. And so I just overhand right, just haymakered him right in the jaw. I got lucky because he just caught me so off guard. And that stunned him enough to let go of my hand and just haul ass out of there. And that's when I caught his plate to see that he was from Texas. I didn't get the full license plate number, though. And I'm sitting there like, well, I just lost a job. That's,
That's self-defense. They literally laid hands on you. That situation would not have happened.
Thankfully, my manager, she was cool, because the cameras didn't get him pulling my arm. You just see, the one camera is focused mostly on the cash register to make sure that, you're not stealing. So it's not focused on the person in the drive-thru so much. And so all they could really see me doing was throwing a punch. But
that's horrible.
Yeah. So, but she looked at the footage, she listened to what I had to say, and then we find out the guy in the first window had the same thing happen to him.
Wow.
That guy thought the dude in the first window was me. And so he tried to pull the same shit on that guy. And that's when I really lost it. I tried to beat that dude's ass because he didn't warn me. Because both of us had headsets on, and you have like 2-3 different radio channels you can talk on. You have the main one where you talk to the person at the drive-thru ordering their food, and then you have a backup channel where anybody with a headset on can talk to each other. And he didn't say shit.
Not very nice of him.
Well, luckily for him, there were like 2 other people working that night that managed to keep me from just beating the holy dog shit out of him. Because I had it up to there at that point.
I think you would have been fired for sure if you beat up other staff members.
At that point, I didn't care. I had just been assaulted, and this guy could have warned me ahead of time. I didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, some jobs are not worth holding on to. Like they can only abuse you for so long.
Yeah. So when I saw that lady at McDonald's, I was like, good for you. You go, girl. Because if somebody threw a shake at me, I don't know if I'd have the wherewithal. I probably would just be like, nope, I quit. I'm done. I'm out of here. But that lady, she's like, oh, fuck no, I'm not taking this. You picked the wrong day, sister. And I think that's the problem with our modern society. Not enough people, like that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to vote for Trump. It's just, I told people, like, he strikes me as the kind of guy who's never been punched in the face. He talks a lot of shit, and nobody ever, people only ever talk shit back to him. But where I grew up, if you talked enough shit and you talked it to the right person, eventually you were going to get punched square in the nose. And that's when you knew where the line was,
Yes.
But yeah, so like I couldn't bring myself to vote for Trump for the first round just for that fact alone. It's like, if somebody had just hauled off and smacked him once, just to show, you've got billions of dollars, but there's still consequences, dude. Go ahead and sue me, but you're still going to have trouble breathing for the next few weeks.
Well, needless to say, I couldn't vote for Trump either, but for wildly different reasons, me being on the other side of the world and all. They tend not to count my vote even if they cast it.
I was one of those dirty centrists that threw away his vote. I voted libertarian just because it's like I
Oh,
couldn't.
that pissed off all the right people. Like I'm the same way. I'm like screw the Democrats, like, and screw Trump. I don't like either of them. What am I gonna do?
Everyone gave Gary Johnson shit. It's like, oh, he didn't even know what Aleppo was. It's like, you didn't know what Aleppo was until you heard he didn't know what Aleppo was.
And then looked it up.
You know, like personally, I wouldn't mind having a president who didn't know where Aleppo was. You know, more likely he's not going to try to invade there.
Well, that was the joke that was going around, saying that vote for Gary Johnson because both Hillary and Trump are going to bomb Syria, but Gary Johnson sure as hell can't if he doesn't even know where it is.
Exactly. But well, no. What was that one like that one poll they had where they were asking people if they would be willing to stage a military intervention if it was shown there was weapons of mass destruction in Agrabah, and like a lot of people voted yes, not realizing that is the city in which Aladdin is set.
Yes.
Let's see, that's not a real place.
Yeah.
Just like the people who had the polls about the trophy hunting of animals that were already extinct, like mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. I'm like, oh, I'm anti-trophy hunting, but you're making us look like idiots.
And when we wanted to invade Wakanda?
Yes. There's something with
colonizers.
Someone was next to one of the animatronics from Jurassic Park and acting like he'd just shot it and was like a trophy hunter. And he got a whole lot of shit saying, how dare you kill this beautiful animal.
It was the Triceratops, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I laughed myself stupid at that one. I was like, just reading the comments. It's like, how do you people not know? But like I personally, the whole you're throwing away your vote never worked on me because I live in a state that hasn't voted Democrat since Kennedy. Oklahoma has voted Republican since 1960. Like, that's not changing anytime soon. I mean, if you actually wanted it to, if liberals actually wanted it to, they would have to move here and live here to vote here. But they're not going to do that. You know, oh, Hillary won the popular vote. Yeah, she won the popular vote because there are so many people jam-packed in New York and L.A. County. You know, you take those two out of the equation, she lost both.
Yeah.
But
like people were so mad at the protest votes, like they were so fed up with everything. They either voted like away from the main two-party system or for shekels voted for Trump when they knew in their state it wouldn't count for anything because it was already kind of decided. And everyone just like got their pennies in a twist. And it's just like, do their opinions not matter too? You guys claim to be for the people and the people kind of speak. Oh, they don't have my opinions. Never mind. We don't care about you speaking.
Well, see, generally the candidates I want to actually win, they never get the primary. They never win the primary vote. So, like in 2012, I would have voted Republican if John Huntsman won the Republican nomination, because like there's a fairly moderate Republican who has experience dealing with China. He had been Obama's ambassador to China for a while. You know, this guy, you know, he had learned Mandarin. He had dealt with the Chinese. You know, he seemed, you know, even though, you know, he's, you know, a Mormon governor from Utah, he seemed like he would have been fairly reasonable and level-headed. So, I mean, if he had won the nomination, I probably would have voted for him. But like this time around, like I'm a registered independent, so I can't vote in the Republican primaries. I can vote in the Democratic one.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, the Democratic primaries are open where you can vote for them even if you're not a registered Democrat here. But I was like, okay, so my choices are, you know, a socialist or the Crypt Keeper. You know, because That's my nickname for Hillary Clinton, because that woman, she's buried enough bodies that you should call her the Crypt Keeper.
No, I mean I haven't heard that term before, but it's actually quite accurate. I'm going to use that.
Well, also, there's just the fact that they were both in their 70s. I mean, Trump's he's in his early 70s too, but he doesn't carry himself like a 70-year-old man.
No.
Like that dude, he's over twice my age, and he has 10 times more energy than I have.
Who's the youngest? Like Trump, Bernie, or Hillary?
I believe Trump was the youngest of the three.
There you go.
So, yeah.
But like everyone's trying to say, like, oh well, he's hopped up on amphetamines. Well, yeah, so was Kennedy.
Waiting for him.
How many presidents do you think are not using drugs?
That's why they don't drug test. Which one thing I really like. Who's that one comedian? Terrence
Williams?
Yeah, Terrence Williams. He's totally for drug testing, like the Senate or higher government positions. Like, why not? You drug test literally everybody else, and they don't run our entire country.
Yeah. Well,
let's see how you guys do on a mouth swab or a piss test.
Well, I mean, how many of those dudes were just drunk off their... I mean, think about Ted Kennedy. Yeah, that dude was swimming in whiskey. John Boehner, bourbon and cigarettes. I mean, anything can be a drug, in my opinion. It just depends on the dose.
I mean, yeah, anyone can have an addiction. It's why, like, there's even gambling hotlines, and that's not even like a direct injection of anything. True.
Well, wasn't there some congressman who got he got pulled over driving through DC on Ambien? Like, he was sleep driving.
Oh yeah, Ambien fucks you up, dude. Like, people kind of like make light of it, but like Ambien will mess with you. It absolutely will. Like,
you hear those horror stories of like people, sleepwalking, driving to like the grocery store, shopping, coming home, and like cooking a full dinner, eating it, going back to bed, and then waking up in the morning thinking they got robbed because, like, what's going on? All this crap's in my kitchen that's been moved around.
Plus, it makes you make racist tweets. Let's not forget that.
Oh, I was about to say Rosio
Oh,
is not a good example of that. But yeah, I mean, there has been abnormal behavior documented with sleeping aids for quite a while.
Well,
I'm not saying sleeping aids don't help, but just like, smoke pot, dude. You'll get munchies, but at least you'll kind of remember. You won't be blacked out.
Yeah.
For the life of me, I can't understand. I can't understand anybody having insomnia so bad that they have to shut their brain off with a pill to go to sleep.
Well, everyone's wired a little differently.
But I mean, because I've done my fair share of drugs back in the day, and none of them sound nearly that bad. Nobody would ever try crack if they told you that it effectively made you brain dead for 8 to 12 hours.
Do you know? So many people tell me, "Oh, I only started meth to lose weight." I'm like, how much do teeth weigh?
Well, no, like, because that actually those were diet pills from, like, I mean, the Rolling Stones wrote a song about it, Mama's Little Helper. Diet pills, and they were just amphetamines from like the 1950s on. Ritalin is mixed amphetamines. Kids who are hyperactive, they're giving them amphetamines to calm them down. That's how crazy it is. If you're wired normally, it has you wired for sound. But if, you're hyperactive, for some reason, amphetamines, they chill you out and let you focus. So, but I remember somebody, because, like I said, I've been on almost everything but roller skates at this point. The only things I've really avoided were like opiates, and there's some of those hard to get hallucinogens. You know, I used to work with this lady who she was one of those that she followed the Grateful Dead like on tour, and she would talk about like all the different types of acid and whatnot. Acid is like a unicorn to me. I've heard of it, but I've never actually experienced it.
Mm.
Mm.
Well,
And
I'm very not druggy. I did marijuana once when I was in Amsterdam, and it didn't really do anything that I cared to repeat.
yeah,
And then that's it. The only other drug I've done is alcohol, which doesn't really count as a drug. It's just getting slightly drunk.
hmm
But that's the extent of my drug use.
well, I mean, I have an addictive personality, and I've whittled myself down to Mountain Dew and menthol cigarettes. So, but you never really get rid of an addiction. You just replace it.
I think I have an obsessive nature rather than an addictive one. Like, if something catches my brain, it'll be the only thing I care about for like 2 weeks, and then I'll just get bored with it. And it's like, well, why was I so invested in this? It's stupid. And then something else will happen, and they're like, no, this is the only thing that matters for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, like that was kind of like the starting point for me, is like having that obsessive personality. Like if I for the longest time when growing up, it was movies.
Yeah.
If I saw a movie I liked, I would want to know everything about it. I would memorize the script. Every line in the movie could tell you forwards and backwards. I'd want to know trivia about it. I was IMDb before there was an IMDb.
I mean, the first thing I do after I finish a video game or watch a movie or anything is go to TV Tropes and see what they have to say about the thing that I just played or watched. Like, without fail, if I liked a game or a movie or a TV show, as soon as I'm finished with it, TV Tropes and then IMDb. Just to read the forums and see what they have to say.
But what got me started with the drugs, it was kind of like that Walk Hard movie, where like the people doing the drugs would try and convince you, like, no, man, you really don't want to try this. Like, yeah, I think I do actually. Yeah. But I always thought it was funny how they have like the gateway theory of drugs is why marijuana should be illegal.
Mm.
It's a gateway drug to harder drugs like cocaine and heroin. Like, actually, no, it's not. At least not in my experience. I started off with cigarettes and alcohol before I ever thought about smoking weed.
Mm.
And then somebody's like, "Hey, you want to try some pot?" And I was like, "Why not?" I mean, these are some folks that I hung out with. They were a few years older than me. I was a teenager, and the dude really didn't even ask. Like, they were a married couple, and he just throws out like a couple of bags of weed onto their coffee table while I'm talking to his wife. And he says, "Honey, look what the couch grew." And I'm looking at the coffee table. I was like, "Is that what I think it is?" Because like I'd never seen anything drug related firsthand.
Hmm.
And she's like, "Yeah, that's weed. You want to try some?" I mean, like, you guys seem fairly normal, so yeah, why not? And it was really funny because like they loaded a pipe and they took a hit off of it each, and then they handed it to me, and I'm sitting there, and I look like such a goober, sitting there trying to light it, and didn't realize there was a little hole on the side to hold. So they're sitting there walking me through it step by step, and I'm hitting this pipe, and I'm not feeling nothing. And then they realize that I'm still like clear-eyed. Like, okay, well, we need to step this up a notch. So they pull out a bong, and they named it just like Half Baked. You know, hey babe, go grab Bong Marley. I'm like, what? She pulls this out. You know, they load that, and like, okay, you know, try this. And so they show me how to work it, and I take a hit, and I start coughing my lungs out immediately. And they're like,
I mean, anyone who's been smoking weed a while knows what newbies are like. If anything, they enjoy breaking people in. Like,
oh, definitely, yeah. And what I thought was,
unless they were assholes, they shouldn't have given you too hard of a time.
No, they weren't giving me a hard time at all. They were, you know, they're just like, okay, well, I mean, if you're interested in trying this, yeah, we'll walk you through it and everything, you know. I mean, the wife was making dinner while this was all going on, so, you know, they let me stay for dinner, you know, because I had the munchies afterwards, you know.
Of course.
But, you know, just sitting there zoning out watching the Mark Wahlberg Max Payne movie, and that was literally the only time I ever found that movie enjoyable. So weed has benefits. You know, it makes horrible movies, you know, passable. But then I had to go home, you know, and I walk across the courtyard from their apartment to mine, and I go in, and I'm just trying to chill out, you know, just, you know, soak it all in. This is you know, walking downstairs was an adventure in and of itself at that point. You know, so I get back to my house, and I'm sitting on the couch, and my mom and sisters had gone grocery shopping, and they get back after I get home, and my mom wants me to help unload the groceries, and then she starts talking to me while I'm unloading groceries, and for the life of me, I don't know how she didn't know I was stoned. Because I'm sitting there asking her to keep repeating herself, and then we had a standalone freezer as well as the refrigerator with the freezer on top, and I'm asking her, like, hey, where do you want this stuff to go? And she's like, oh, just put it in the freezer. And I stood there for like 5 solid minutes, or at least what felt like 5 minutes, just staring blankly back and forth from one to the other. Just knowing that if I put it in the wrong one, I'm busted.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because, you know, like she didn't know I had been smoking weed for like months after that. It took a while for her to figure it out. But yeah, so I mean, the harder drugs, you know, like I never quite understood how people got into pills. That one always puzzled me.
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. Like,
yeah, because I went ahead and, you know, I had that cavalier "don't knock it till you try it" attitude until I tried it, and I was like, oh fuck no, this is no bueno. I had this one girlfriend. She was more of a drinker and a pill popper, and I was a weed smoker. And so one night, she's like, well, I tell you what, I'll try some of your weed if you try some of this. All right, fine. Well, instead of her giving me like one of her party pills, she gave me one of her actual medication pills.
Oh.
And I found out later that it was an antipsychotic.
ooh.
It was like a giant freaking horse pill of a antipsychotic drug. I think the name was Seroquel. And I was passed out for like a day and a half.
Jesus.
I woke up like 36 hours later. And it was kind of like, you know, having that hangover when the Mormons knocked on my door. My hair hurt. It was that bad.
Christ.
And so, like, I woke up and just hungover, grouchy, feeling like shit. And she's like, hey, sleepyhead, how you doing? I'm like, shh. What the fuck did you give me? You know? And then she tells me, and that's when I realized, like, oh no, I stuck my dick in crazy.
Yeah.
You know? That's how I found out that I was dating a crazy bitch. And that relationship didn't last too long after that.
Probably for the best.
It was. But yeah, I was like, how do you function on those pills? And I guess she had just built up a tolerance over time that she, seemed functional.
Emphasis on function.
Yeah.
Just that crazy that the pill's doing the best it can. And
Yeah, it managed to hold it back. It masked it very well. And then, like, when I woke up, it was like, aside from the hangover, there was this level of clarity. It's like, she takes these all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, what if she had missed it? What if she had missed a dose? What if she had ran out one day and couldn't get to the pharmacy?
That would have been a fun time.
I could have woke up to, like, some bunny boiler holding the kitchen knife to my throat.
Yeah.
I just realized it is.
Yeah, it's late. Yeah.
And
I've been eyeing the time, but I didn't want to break up the conversation, so.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I won't shut up unless you tell me to, so.
No. I'm enjoying the conversation. Noticed how long the stream had been going. It's sort of like, wasn't sure what time you normally meant to wrap up.
Yeah.
Well, we can always resume this another evening.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I guess on that note.
Later, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Good night. It was nice meeting you guys.
You too.
Terry and Campbell.
Good to meet you.
Terry, it's nice to finally put a voice to the chat.
Yes, it's the same with you. I find you sound a bit like Jack Cochran, actually.
Well, that is a step up. The last time somebody told me what my voice sounded like, they said it was a mix of Nicolas Cage and Hank Hill. So
Oh, wow.
that is definitely an improvement.
I can kind of see it. Well, hear it. To be fair.
What the hell?
A D in English? But Bobby, you speak English.
Ah.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Have a nice night, y'all.